All right, good evening. This is the Town of New Canaan Town Council meeting, regularly scheduled meeting, Wednesday, February 16th at 7 p.m. This is a virtual meeting as well as a in-person meeting. There is a Zoom link up on the town website if anyone cares to join. It's meeting ID 842-1004-6647. And with that, I would like to welcome in, I think it's actually, let's do the roll call first, Penny. Let's do that first.
Okay, I can do that.
Let's do that first. Roll call.
Robin Bates Mason.
Here.
Rita Bettina.
Here.
Tom Butterworth.
Here.
Mark Chimsky.
Here.
Steve Carl.
Here.
Luke Kaufman. Is he on yet?
I'm on. I'll be there in 5 minutes.
Okay. Mike Morrow.
Here.
Maria Norton.
She's
Kimberly
on.
Norton.
Here.
Hillary Orman.
Here.
Christina Ross.
Here.
And Penny Young. We are all here.
Great. Thank you very much. All right. I'd like to welcome Troop 70. If you can come forward and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, how impressive. Nice looking.
For the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And would anybody like to step up from Troop 70 and say anything? Or you guys got anything going on?
All right, so I'm James McCall, and today I'm working on the citizenship in the community merit badge.
Thanks, James.
I'm Jake Trepanier. I'm Jake Trepanier, and I'm also working on citizenship in the community merit badge.
Thanks, Jake.
I'm Nathan Trepanier. I'm also working on the citizenship in the community merit badge.
My name is Dr. Trepanier, and
Me too.
working on citizenship in the community.
You guys came to the right place.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight and good luck. Hopefully you'll get that merit badge and best of luck. Thank you for everything you're doing, guys.
On behalf of Troop 70, thanks for having us.
And thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you,
coming.
guys.
Thanks
That's-
for coming.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right, minutes are up next. Approval of the minutes for the regular meeting held on January 19th, 2022. Are there any deletions, corrections? All right,
Not I.
all right.
People on Zoom, you have to do it by roll call.
Okay, let's do by roll call then.
Okay.
Yeah, so looking out there.
I can tell you, it's Luke and Christina.
Luke and Christina, any deletions, corrections to the minutes?
Nothing for me.
Nothing from me.
Thank you.
All right.
All in favor?
Right.
That's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Item number 3, public comments. Members of the public are welcome to speak to the town council on the agenda topics scheduled for review and or vote. Speakers are requested to provide their name and street address, and comments will be limited to 2 to 3 minutes, subject to the total number of speakers. Would anybody from the public like to address the council? Yeah, you can come up to the mic and just introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good to see faces. Yep.
Oh, yeah, right here, John
this
was
one's
fine. Yeah. Yeah, you can pull up a chair.
This one good? Good to see faces. First time here in a long time. Good evening. My name is Giacomo Londi. I live at 313 Elm Street. Dear Town Council, firstly, I'm very pleased to see that you're looking to mark the service of Steve Benko for this community. The outpouring of stories and condolences for Steve and all that he's done for the town is really heartwarming. His life so fully lived in service to others should be a real example to us all. And I send my personal sincere condolences to his family. My contacts with Steve were very few. I'm still a new resident, but they're always extremely professional, helpful, and informative. and such a naming as proposed, in my view, is totally appropriate and should be approved. Secondly, I encourage you in the budget preparation to ask the Department of Public Works to go into as much detail as possible about our water and sewer system and share that with the public. According to an article in the New Canaanite in October of 2021, we've spent approximately $200,000 to understand, or are in the process of spending this money, to understand the stress on the existing system. It was indicated in that same article that the state of Connecticut may step in and not allow any more laterals or hookups if this is not addressed. You as the town council and we as the town should understand how much investment will be needed to upgrade our sewer and water system in the next budget cycles to maintain good services for our existing structures. We should also understand if the $200,000 already approved is the only amount of study work that needs to be done, or if additional consulting work and as such budgeted dollars will need to take place prior to any town sewer project actually commencing. An estimated start to completion time for such a water and sewer upgrade construction project should be part of the budget presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Giacomo. Would anyone else from the public like to address the town council? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, First Selectman update. Update from First Selectman Kevin Moynihan. Welcome, Kevin.
Good evening, Town Council. I'll give you basically the same update that I gave to the Board of Finance last week. First, obviously COVID is waning, and I guess we've had about 20 cases so far this week, so we're getting down to pre-Omicron levels, and it was very heartening to see the governor and the House and the Senate agreed to give local discretion to school boards starting the end of the month to take masks off where they're appropriate. We're really waiting for the guidance that State Public Health and Department of Education will give, but I hope that they're going to have the metrics that will allow towns like New Canaan that are very highly vaccinated to enjoy the benefits of vaccination. So, and we just had a clinic tonight. We continue to offer vaccinations and testing for COVID 3 days a week, and we're doing another. So that our numbers are off the charts in terms of vaccination rates. Capital projects. You may have noticed in January the Eversource was out in the Burns construction for Eversource was out in the driveway hooking up finally the town hall to gas, and they brought it all the way over from Main Street to town hall in order to be able to service all the retail stores and restaurants on Elm Street all the way down on the north side of Elm Street. So it's good to have that finally in. The town hall has modern dual fuel burners, which will be easily converted to gas. And then we're in the process of installing a CHP unit, which will generate electricity in this building. And between the solar and the CHP, pretty much take the building off the grid. We had a meeting with Eversource 2 weeks ago. They're committed to starting the Upper Elm Street, Grove Street, Pine Street project and Forest Street as soon as the spring asphalt plants open. And we're in the process of helping them identify all the businesses that are eligible to hook up so we can hopefully get businesses hooked up and be able to repave all the roads. This summer is going to be a huge repaving project for the roads that were disturbed in 2018, 2019. And so that'll be good to get all the roads downtown resurfaced. And then finally, Eversource is committing to bringing gas to Lapham Center, where we will not only heat Lapham Center, but also install a CHP unit, which will generate electricity that will service not only Lapham Center, but also the water tower field lights. As you know, we closed the 220 Elm Street purchase at the end of January. A former member of this commission told me, why did you buy the building for $6.1 million? I'd like to emphasize we bought the building for $6.1 million, but we turned around and sold half of it to investors for $4.2 million. So we now own half of a building that's worth $9 to $10 million. And so if you don't have that message, we do not own the building at $6.1 million. We own half of it. And I'm working with the superintendent to work on his plans to give notice to the landlord for an early 2023 move and renovation when the current tenant Gridaire moves out in June or July. Board of Selectmen passed the budget to the Board of Finance, as you know, with a 6.5% increase. Hopefully the Board of Finance is going to be able to whittle that down through several mechanisms that we've suggested, and especially related to health reserves and our use of our OPEB trust, which we have been funding for a number of years to pay our retiree benefits. So hopefully we'll see a much better final number than 6.5% increase. Obviously, January and December are the busiest months for the selectmen, or for the first selectman at least, putting budgets together. And we also have been busy working on our Playhouse plan, which was presented last night to the Board of Finance in executive session because we're negotiating with the operator. I hope to be able to bring this to the town council by the end of March. But it's a very interesting operator, and one that I hope we can succeed in bringing forth. And we also unveiled the Waving House plan, which we first did at the Board of Selectmen meeting, to upgrade our Waving House wedding experience and be able to maximize the value so that we can do the two projects we need to do, one of which is the elevator and the other is the bathrooms, so that we can get that building fully compliant, ADA wise, et cetera. In January, as you know, we had a hearing in this, not a hearing, a public information session on the proposed public safety cell tower at 1837 Bonus Ridge. And that hopefully will go to the siting council by early March. And they will probably take 3 or 4 months to approve it. So that's moving forward. The Soundview Lane Tower is electrified, but and AT&T has their antennas on it, but I'm not sure. They keep on telling me next week, but it should be very soon to get that those antennas working for AT&T, Verizon. And we have the carriers are all of a sudden crazy interested in New Canaan. And so we're going to have some further news soon about other locations for cell towers. In January, the Board of Selectmen disbanded the Advisory Committee on Buildings and Infrastructure, partly because I think the outside advisors we brought into that committee didn't feel they were being well used. It put quite a burden on Tigers every month to prepare for that meeting, but we also accomplished a lot by bringing together the town and the Board of Ed on projects, especially energy saving projects. So we may continue that form with staff only, but the cooperation with the Board of Education is working pretty well on capital projects. As I said, 2022 will be a year of repaving downtown. Plus, the state notified us last week that they're going to repave 4 miles of Route 123 and 3 miles of Route 124, which, as Tiger said, is nearly unprecedented. So we're getting a lot of paving coming this summer. And finally, the building, police department building project, as I noted, largely due to the 220 Elm Street transaction, which really took all the month of December and all the month of January. And also the budget, we deferred further action on that until March. But in the meantime, we're doing, I should mention too, in early December, just before Christmas, a party downtown presented a building to us, which we had looked at before. We spent some time in January looking at that building again and decided it wouldn't be as economic to try to convert a downtown building to a police department. And then we are also beginning the deeper dive into the envelope of the current building. And so that'll be a Board of Finance action in March. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
a question. Could you repeat what's going on with the police station that you mentioned? I didn't follow what you said. There's a building that was.
It was actually a building we looked at 2 years ago, and they came back to us with a different plan. And we looked at it and decided it didn't work. It was too expensive. It was too expensive.
Because
It could work, yeah.
as you know, in November, we voted unanimously to suggest that we keep the police department in its current location. And it was based on, at least for me, a question of avoiding two risks. One, the risk of public rejection of a new location, and the other one, a risk of getting bogged down and getting the public to approve a new building at the current location. And so we're just wondering if we planning to change our minds, or?
Well, again, I've been very clear, along with Stuart Salabini and Paul Tully on the building committee, and actually Leon and John DeFrederico in the beginning. Paul Foley actually wants a new building in the same location. I don't think it's a good idea to renovate a 96-year-old building. That's why we're doing the deeper dive with the on the envelope. And we also have a significant issue with the pistol range. So being there. So that's for March.
Yeah, so more to come. I mean, we actually asked that we put that on the agenda this month, but Kevin asked if we could just give it another month. So we'll be looking at that next month for sure.
Okay.
So we just need to give him a little more time. He kind of explained again about how busy January and February have been. So, we got to get him a little bit of time. He's only one guy. So.
And we didn't have a CFO for December.
That's true.
And,
We'll transition.
I think Ann is on.
So there's been a lot of moving parts. So, you get that.
I just also wanted to thank you, Kevin, for everything you do. I mean, you're incredibly hardworking and productive, and command of the subject matter is phenomenal. And I also this is probably maybe something I shouldn't do, but I also wanted to say that publicly that I've reviewed from every angle the allegation of breach of ethics, and I think there's nothing there. I just wanted to go on record saying that.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that.
Kevin, I want to just ask a quick question unrelated to anything you've been speaking about. Just because there's a lot of upheaval in the community right now about this Weed Street proposal for the multifamily unit. Can you just talk a little bit about the process only, about the WCPA and then just the process only? We have this memo from Bertram Moses. It's just nothing more to just at least the community out there listening now can understand.
Absolutely.
The process.
Absolutely. First of all, let me preface it by saying I'm a neighbor, so I'm by definition conflicted. And to the extent I could be involved in the process, I am ex officio with the Board of Finance, a tie-breaking vote on the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance never has ties, but theoretically, I'm a member of the WPCA. And but I'm recusing myself from the process for that reason. Todd issued read this statement last night from Bertram. Basically, the first step that Carp Associates has brought forth is the the sewer issue. And that is simply an issue as to whether there's a capacity. There's already a connection there. So that will be, during the month of March. And April, Tiger and the sewer experts will be looking to answer the question on that technical question. And then the 830G application was filed on Monday or Tuesday of this week. And that will begin a P&Z process. We're going to have a press conference tomorrow with Tom O'Day and Ryan Fazio, myself, as Greenwich did last week. 830G obviously is not working for towns like New Canaan and Greenwich. And we really need reform of that law. My personal view is that's a terrible location for multifamily structure. And but the process will unfold in the next several months.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'd just like to second what Tom was commenting on, and the range of issues that our first selectman deals with every single day. And they are not just, this is not just a simple little political position. It is really chief executive officer of a corporation. And I also would like to then second your comments and say thank you.
I appreciate that, Penny. Thank you. It's been a rough couple of months. And we, as I said, we never would have gotten 220 done if I had an opponent in November, and it was a much harder transaction to get done in December and January than I ever realized. But I think it's a good idea we did it. So.
Well, I mean, you go through a report like you just said. I mean, if you start ticking off the good news, I mean, there's a lot of good news in that report. So, it depends if you're a half full or half empty guy. I'm a half full guy. So thank you for all you're doing, and let's keep it up.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Next up on the agenda, item number 5, labor agreement. Cheryl, and let's see, Chris Hodson, you're out there as well, right? This is a motion to approve a labor agreement with the New Canaan Public Works Union Local 1303-013 of Council 4, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, AFL-CIO, starting July 1st, 2021 through July 30th, 2024. And I didn't mention Tiger Man is out there as well. So Cheryl, you have the floor.
Perfect. Thank you. I am happy to be here tonight. For those of you who don't know me, I am the Human Resource Director. I worked on this contract with Tiger Man and Chris Hodson. We started back in September of 21, and we were able to come to an agreement in December of 21. The Public Works Group is a very easy group to work with. It was good negotiations on both sides, and I would like to thank those Public Works members. I have asked Chris Hodson to review the contract, and then we can open it up for any questions you might have. Chris?
Thanks, Cheryl. Good evening. I'm Chris Hodgson. I'm a senior partner with Bertram Moses. We are asking the town council to ratify the tentative agreement that the town negotiating committee reached with the union. The union ratified this on January 24. We had worked on some other terms in the contract and got the language right. Basically, the terms of the agreement are as follows. We cleaned up the holiday language, including not having the employees leave early before Memorial Day. We made medical plan changes, including plan design changes to the PPO by increasing the outpatient copay and the prescription copay. We had moved to a 3-tier premium cost share for the employees. They had been paying a percentage of the premium based on the single plus 1 rate. By going to 3-tier, the family plan employees will pay more, the singles will pay less, which we thought was fair. And we increased the premium share contribution for the PPO from 19 to 19.5 in the last year, and increased the HSA premium cost share to 13.5 from 13%. That was part of our negotiation with the union to try to keep wages low or lower. We negotiated in the first year wage increase, which is retroactive, 2.35%. In the second year, 2.5%. In the third year, 2.5%. That's a 2.45% increase on average, which is consistent with the CCM cost data reporter, which is at about 2.4. And considering inflation, I think it's a good result. With respect to the long-term disability plan, most of these employees are in a defined contribution plan, and so they don't have a disability retirement. We agreed to provide long-term disability insurance if there's any type of catastrophic injury that's not covered by workers' comp. We also agreed to increase the sellback of accrued sick days when they separate from $40 to $50 per day. And we changed some of the positions and salaries to reflect their current duties, and also agreed to change the hours of the parks employees where they can report to work earlier, starting on April 15. It had been in June. So those are the terms. I think it was a very fair agreement for both sides. We'd ask you to ratify it this evening.
Thank you, Chris. Tiger, you want to say a few words while we have you up there?
Sure. First, some of my staff are in the audience. I just want to, Mo Zachary, our highway superintendent, is there. Dennis Barron, who's the president of the union, and Lou Boise, who eventually will be, we're looking at the heir apparent for our highway department, taking over for Mo's. We don't want to see Mo's retire, but 3-4 years from now, you know, he'll want to go. So we're training Lou at present. As Chris mentioned, and Cheryl mentioned, the union was fantastic to work with. They are always fantastic to work with. It's usually just a general discussion. There's no animosity, there's no anger, there's no frustration. It's all very congenial. It's actually a nice meeting of the minds. And I think that it's a good contract for all. I think the union was satisfied with it. And we'd like to see it ratified.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from the council?
I'll just make a statement. I had the opportunity to chat with Cheryl and Tiger on the contract. Cheryl, it may be helpful for the town council and the public to understand the issue with the pension in the contract and where it was, because then I'd just like to make a follow-up statement regarding that.
Yes, 2 contracts ago, we did remove the pension from the Public Works contract. So we have currently 35% of the members in the pension and the rest are in the defined contribution plan. So that is why you saw the disability part added into this contract, but we do have a small group still in the pension.
Right. So to me, this contract is a little bit different than the other contracts we have in town. And I think, again, Chris, this is just a fantastic labor negotiator. I think he did a great job on this contract. Tiger and Cheryl, it's a great team. I like the contract. I think it's tight. I think it's fair. No one got everything that they wanted, which means it's a good deal. And it respects the guys and all the staff of the department, but it gives Tiger the opportunities and flexibility he needs. And it's a good deal for the town. So to my extent, I see no reason not to approve this contract.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually on that call too, and I always know who the right guy to bring in the room on the council is when it comes to the contract negotiation. So as long as Mike is in the room with me, I feel like I'm duly covered. So
I thought you were talking about Chris.
Chris too, but obviously the contract is. I think it's a great contract as well for the town and for the guys. So with that, Cheryl, you need a vote tonight, right?
Yes, we do.
Okay. All right. So we need a motion to vote. Mike, you want to make a motion?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Department of Public Works collective bargaining agreement.
I second it.
Oh,
Seconded by Kim. Did you get that, Tiger? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous here. And how about Maria? You're out there?
Christina.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got Maria here.
It's only
Christina. Christina,
Yes.
sorry. Sorry, Maria.
Yes.
I heard her voice.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll learn these virtual meetings. Yes. All right. That's unanimous. Before you guys go, Moj, I'm just going to address you because I've known you for a long, long time. This town is so lucky to have you guys out there every single day. Doesn't matter if it's snowing, raining, whatever. You guys are out there working, keeping us safe, keeping the roads clean. We are the envy of many, many towns. So thank you guys for everything you do. You make this place beautiful. Everywhere you go in this town is a reflection of you. So thank you from the town. Lois, come on up to the mic and just say something because we don't get to hear you enough.
The other thing is these are good, caring, lovely people. They're just great to have out there representing the town.
I just want to say you're only as good as your team, and I got great guys, and I got great people here, That's why it all works. And thank you very much.
You're staying for another 10 years, right? He didn't say anything. Come on. Thank you again, guys. And thank you, Chris Hodson. Thank you so much. And Cheryl, thank you.
Thanks very much, Councilman Stephen. Thanks for your nice words, Mike.
Oh, absolutely. Well deserved. Thanks.
All right, next item up on the agenda is item number 6, Waveney Pool. I'm going to just move out into the audience here, if you don't mind, and Sven and I are going to just take a few minutes.
It's good to see you all. I miss you.
This is my cot. Boy, this is a different angle. Look at it. This is an intimidating group. Holy smokes.
See what happens when you retire?
All right. There are some difficult things to do, and this is one of them. The first thing I'd like to do is just take a minute and just have a moment of silence for one of the best people that ever walk in New Canaan, Steve Banko. Take a minute. Thank you. Okay.
Take a breath.
Yeah. So a while back, when we kind of learned what was going on with Steve, we kind of got together, a bunch of us got together, and we said, how are we going to honor this guy? He's one of the most widely recognized people in our community. He's the face of Parks and Rec, dating back to the early 70s. And obviously his body of work needs no introduction to this group. He's loyally attended so many meetings over the years. And he's been a part of the commission since 1979, when he was appointed the head of the Parks and Rec Department. We looked at several locations in town. We looked at various parks, Mead Park, Kiwanis Park, Irwin, even the track at the high school, roads leading into Waveney, paddle, tennis courts, trails, et cetera. We explored a couple of different ideas. And Waveney was chosen as the spot because Waveney is what was near and dear to Steve. And the location at Waveney that meant the most to him was the pool. Sue Banko was able to ask Steve before his passing what his two biggest accomplishments were. And he named Dunning Stadium first, and he named the pool second. And it was obvious that the pool was the place to do the naming. So what we've done is we've put together a short presentation. I've asked Sven to do this too, because this is not one of the easier things I've had to do here, because Steve is a good friend. Sven and I just want to talk about a little bit about some of the things about the pool that Steve had impact on. In 1995, in November, Steve recommended that a town study and the idea of adding a pool would be a good idea. That's way back in 11 of 95. And then in May of 97, Dick Bond and the selectmen granted a conditional approval for the Pool Advisory Committee to locate the pool where it currently sits. There was a two-story house there built in 1915, and town was collecting some rent there, but it was decided that that would be the location. In presenting the development plans, Bob Rogers proposed that the facility be open from Memorial Day to Labor Day and available to all age groups in the entire community. Then in July of 1998, Steve Banko played an instrumental role in convincing the boards and commissions that the pool should be built. He cites 5 prior studies and argues that it's the right time to do it, and that it doesn't clash. These are a direct quote from Steve. It does not clash with the original guidelines of the park, and it will be used to support the park, and it's part of the recreation and conservation clause in the original deed of the Lapham property. July of 98, Steve also goes on to say that when not in season, the parking lot would be utilized for other park-related activities. And I thought that quote was pretty amazing, because we've used that parking lot for Lobster Fest and, Planet Mechanics and their trees there. We've had the Christmas tree stuff there, overflow parking for caffeine and carburetors. We even stored the Mead Park playground there at one point. So his foresight was really amazing. Then it went on to Dick Bond was instrumental in getting the pool done. The legend has it that Dick actually jumped into the pool with fully clothed. We haven't verified that, but there are some folks who said that the night before the dedication, he jumped in. The pool was actually opened June 2nd of 2002. And Dick Bond was presented with the key to the pool. And then on that day, Ann Cotton and Bob Rogers thanked their committee, and I'm going to recognize them again. It was Susan LaPerla, Kevin McIntosh, Dan Ward, Peter Murphy, and the late Harold Glazer. Steve Banco, who supervised the project from start to finish, deemed the facility great for the town and a fabulous outcome of over 30 years of thinking about it on that subject. So that's a little bit of background, fun facts on the pool. I asked Sven here tonight for a couple of reasons. One, to hold my hand. Second was to talk a little bit about Steve. And I actually was blown away as I read some of the comments from the public about Steve and the impact that he's had on this town. And I took snippets out of those comments and I got to page 3 and literally ran out of room. I've never seen that kind of outpouring for any individual. So go ahead. You got the mic, baby.
So I'm just going to give you some other background. We know how much, Steve loved the parks and running all of his recreation programs, basically taking care of us, making this town a lot more fun. And just want to mention a few of the other things out there. Steve and I were together in the fire company for a long, long time. Steve was chief for 15 years. We both came back from college, joined the fire company, and Steve became my teacher, and taught me, how to fight fire. And we radically changed the way we fight fire in New Canaan. Somebody asked me today, what do you remember about that? And I said, I remember showing up at fires when guys would wear varsity jackets and sit there and shoot water from the outside through one of the rubber hoses. And we got away from that and went into fully geared air packs on and driving deep into the fire before we opened up and started doing a lot more professional job there. Steve was instrumental in making sure that we had the proper equipment here in town for vehicle extrication and motor vehicle accidents. When I started in the fire company, we had a lawnmower blade that was wrapped with friction tape and a wooden mallet, and you hit that in order to cut open the parts of the car. And Steve was made sure that we had a Hearst tool. So big change. He's trained statewide. There are people out there, today who were trained by Steve and in vehicle extrication. So the number of lives that he's saved across the state is just huge. I don't think it's a countable number. 15 years of fire chief as a volunteer, for which he received a stipend similar to what the other selectmen get, a couple $1,000 a year. But he ran that whole thing while he was also running the rec department. Early on, Steve was a charter member, that is a founding member of New Canaan Volunteer Ambulance Corps, back when we purchased a used Cadillac ambulance and went from throwing people in the back seat of the car and putting the pedal to the metal to get to Norwalk and doing something more reasonable and humane. So basically, Steve was a teacher, a coach, a huge leader for many, many years in this town, and just a wonderful friend. There wasn't anything he didn't do. Steve would repair pumps to keep the pools running. He would unclog toilets, sinks, overflows, pick up dog poop, grab trash that people just thoughtlessly left around town, throw that all in the back of the pickup truck. That was Steve. Everything had to be just so with Steve. You know, we think about setting up for the 4th of July, and we would often sit out there and put all the trash cans out for everybody to throw all their junk in. We'd drive back around the back of the house, and I'd look at Billy Cap. We'd start to laugh because we knew that as soon as we left, Steve was going to go out there and move it like 6 feet this way or that way to make sure it was right. So everything for Steve had to be right. And Steve did everything but retire.
Thank you very much. I wanted to read a few of the other, just a few of the notes that I printed out here from citizens that have posted memories, and it'll go on and on and on. And I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear all about stories about Steve. But, you know, when you read some of these, who was Steve Banco? He was a dedicated to the core guy, serving New Canaan, hard work, generosity, friendly spirit exemplified, and he was a treasure for all New Canaanites. A great boss, a great person for the town of New Canaan. For 18 years, Steve was instrumental in the Summer Theater of New Canaan. Steve Banco was a New Canaan institution and a friend for all who knew him. It just goes on and on and on. Here's one, and I think, you know, it's difficult to imagine what life in New Canaan would be without Steve Banco. He probably did more for our town than any other person in the history of New Canaan. He was everywhere, doing everything and doing it all the time, and typically with a smile on his face. So I printed these because I'd like to put these into our permanent minutes for the council and recognize Steve. Yeah, so I've got to go back up and we'll make the ask, but I just want, Mark, I want you to hold up that bundle of keys right there for a sec. That's in front of us. That, I asked B today if I could come over to the office and grab a picture of the pool and take something of, you know, that would remind us all of Steve Banco. And she said, I've got the perfect thing for you. That bunch of keys has no markings on it whatsoever. There are keys to every single thing in this town on that key ring. I mean, I have no idea that you could open anything in this town and yeah. And, you know, and you ask Steve, hey, can you open this? He would just pull the key out right off of the ring. He would know exactly where it was and how to do it. And that to me says it all right there. I mean, he was just one of a kind. So I'm going to come back up to the chair, but you know, if anybody else would like to just share a memory or a moment before we vote, you know, please do. Thank you.
I'll just say that luckily for us, we were able to do a gridiron show dedicated to Steve. And of course, we poked fun at him for the entire time. But afterwards, he was the most grateful fall guy that we have ever had. I mean, he was just so thrilled that we did that. Knox, notwithstanding, he's a good sport. And it created a memory for his family, and he was treasured that.
I just wanted to follow up on what Sven said. I had the pleasure of working with Steve on the Waveney Pool Committee a couple of years ago, and we were having a party at the Waveney House and someone broke a bottle. And I thought I was like, who's going to clean it up? Steve went over there and picked up every shard of glass and put it away. And anyway, he was a wonderful person to work with. My sincere condolences to his family. And he really was a treasure, is a treasure for New Canaan. And I also just want to say that I think the pool is a great thing to attribute to him, because one of the reasons we moved here, in addition to all the other great things about New Canaan, was the pool. And I think Steve obviously was really instrumental in that. And we've been to a lot of swim meets with my family. And I have to say, it is one of the best pools in Fairfield County. It really is. It's a real treasure. So perfect solution. Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Anyone else?
For Steve, Sven, thanks for making that presentation. It was heartfelt, and I know how difficult that is, and the pain of loss. It's brutal, and I know that. So thank you for that. Steve was an irreplaceable guy. He actually gave me a lot of quiet advice for a long time once I got on town council. Something I actually never really spoke about to anybody, but a lot of ways to temper me and help guide me along the way, which, if you can believe me being tempered, Tom's laughing. But he was a fantastic guy, and he'll be deeply missed, and a true example for what a New Canaanite should be in this town. And I hope, given our past year of hot topic issues we've had on a lot of different things and some pitch disagreements, I think holding up Steve as an example of how to conduct ourselves, I think is a wise move.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? Okay, so,
Yeah, I was just
oh,
gonna
Robin,
say-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just to say the type of guy that Steve was, I have an email here from February 2nd. We were talking about some Parks and Rec stuff, and I had mentioned that the
You said
Christmas tree.
February 2nd?
February 2nd. I had mentioned that I keep on checking on the lot for Christmas trees because some people had dumped afterwards, and I had told him, well, I've been picking them up, but there was one that was just too heavy, so I was going to wait. And he said, no, I'll take care of it. And that day he emailed people. He said, Robin, you don't worry about it. I've got it. So, and then February 2nd. So just such a great guy.
Okay, so a couple things, just for the record, we did do some background. Obviously, I actually reached out to Bob Rogers, and Kevin actually had talked to Bob earlier, and Bob was thrilled with the idea of the naming possibility. I also reached out to Ann Cotton, who's down in Kiowa, and she was absolutely thrilled with the idea as well. So some of the old guard that put this whole thing together plan on coming back. So Steve's 50th anniversary of employment with the town is actually June 1st coming up. And it dovetails with the 20th anniversary of the dedication of the pool on June 2nd. So that early June timing will be the potential for a naming opportunity and a townwide event. So I think at this point we'll make a motion, and I've got just a couple of other follow-up things on this, but who would like to make a motion?
I make a motion.
All right, Kim Norton makes a motion to say, let me just read the, actually, I'll read this into the minutes as well. It's consideration of a request to name the town pool at Waveney Park as the Steve Banco Pool in honor and recognition of Stephen E. Banco Jr.'s 50 years of dedicated service as a boy
Ambassador of the
to town of New Canaan.
I will proudly second it.
Penny seconds. All in favor?
Christina, are you still on?
Yes, I vote yes.
Thank you, Christina.
Unanimous.
That's unanimous. Thank you. All right, so and a point of order as well, Board of Selectmen and Park and Rec have also supported this unanimously at an earlier meetings over the last couple of days. And you know, I just want to thank Sven for coming out and helping me with this. And want to thank Steve's family who gave Steve. And that's it.
Should we move on to number 7?
Let's do it. Move on to number 7. Thank you. Thank you, Sven. Thank you.
Thanks, Sven.
Thanks, Sven.
That was a lot harder than I thought it was supposed to be.
Good job.
Let me 7.
All right, thank you.
Okay, item number 7 is the Waveney Usage Study Report, a strategic planning presentation by the case study brands for Waveney House usage. Tucker?
Yes.
And
I am
Kevin.
joined, Sven, is this picture of his or yours? Got Sarah Allard with me and Ellen Reed.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. Love Fest for sure.
Sorry for your loss. Yeah, that was a really nice tribute.
Sarah and Ellen they are with Case Study Brands, but we found them through the Athletic Foundation. They've worked with the Athletic Foundation on the Field Fest concept and brought it to life here in New Canaan. And in studying, Kevin had asked me to do some research in terms of what really Waveney could be in terms of it being a premier wedding event kind of venue, what would need to happen to the building, what are some of the possibilities. So we reached out to Sarah and Ellen, and they will take you through some of the work that they did. Just bear in mind that while we hope to really enhance the building to make it this venue, we also want to make sure that it's available to the residents of New Canaan during the week, all the activities that happen there all year long. They have presented to Board of Selectmen. Last night they presented to the Board of Finance. So you're last on the tour, and they actually got to meet Steve. And they met Steve, and they sat with Steve and talked to Steve. So and Kevin and all of us, but so they understand what we're all dealing with here with Steve. So I'm gonna
Thank you.
turn it over.
Do you want me to, can I share this?
Yes, I gave
Okay.
you. I gave Ellen share. Yes, right, Jerry.
Enough miking there, Tucker?
I can do it from here. Yeah. Okay, no problem.
Sorry.
Okay.
Do they have enough miking?
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, they're good here. This is a good spot.
Oh, wait, I'm on mute.
In your home, you can't hear.
Yeah, it's really.
We need.
Last night was
Yeah.
good. Last night was great.
Was it?
Yeah,
Sharing?
but the one before that was horrible.
Share your screen and Zoom.
Here, let me make use.
Okay, well, I can start. Can you guys all hear me before I
They
finish?
have it on their tablets as well.
Okay, perfect. Well,
You can
A,
open
it's
your
an honor
tablet.
for us to be here tonight. We got to speak with Steve, and clearly that was lovely to hear what everyone had to say. So I think hopefully what we present tonight is also a testament to his career and dedication to Waveney. So we fell in love with New Canaan, working with the New Canaan Athletic Foundation. We helped them manage the Field Fest. I don't know if any of you guys were there, but that was an amazing event, and have really loved this project. So we were not familiar with Waveney House. We've been at the park a lot, and it was amazing to tour it, to get to know it. We spoke with 12 different.
Yeah, you see how it's showing up on the screen?
Oh, is that it? Stop share. I'm gonna just share full screen. Just have the preview here.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. Move this out of the way. Great. Sorry, guys, 1 second. It's in preview instead of the back of the. Okay, we're good. You guys see all this?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So we had the opportunity, I'm gonna go through my slides, to really partner with the town of New Canaan. And part of what we were tasked with was to provide guidance of how to use Waveney and to uncover your brand DNA. What we talk about for brand DNA is why an organization is passionate about what they're doing. So specifically, we work to uncover and articulate an overarching brand DNA and strategic guidelines for Waveney House to drive engagement, to build community, and ultimate to return on any investment that we're going to make for the town of New Canaan. The discovery and positioning will serve as an important tool to ensure clear and consistent messaging and to provide a foundation for future communications. So we have a 50-page document, and I respect all of your time, and I'm going to read it very quickly for you guys, but also encourage all of you to take some time with it. There's a lot of details in here, a lot of information. Here's a list of who we interviewed. So it gave us a really good 360-degree approach to understanding brides and employees, and just a full picture of everyone that was involved in Waveney House, and they're, real passionate about it. So here's a background. The history of Lapham House was Waveney House, but the Lapham family really celebrated culture and art and music. And I think that as the future of Waveney House, we look to tie it back into the past. And so that'll be a core value for us. The constituents of Waveney House are the town of New Canaan, rec department, nonprofits, local businesses, New Canaan residents and families, brides, and event planners and caterers. So when we look to do a project, we say, who are we talking to? So our audience is very vast here. The current usage, it's very small type that you guys can see, but there's a ton of organizations and people that have a connection and are able to use the resources here. Part of the reason that we're doing this is there are some significant challenges. And in order to keep Waveney House at its very best, one of the things is going to be to make it ADA compliant, the second floor right now. We'll need to create access to the second floor with an elevator, and we need to update the bathrooms. We need to look at the HVAC. We needed to see if we could create a dedicated event manager. I think that came up a lot, that was one of the issues that we had. Shared physical space, that there's town offices along with the camp, along with weddings, and I think that we need to negotiate how to work that better. There's no single space that can accommodate a large gathering. So I think part of that was, can we look at the usage of a tent? And so we spoke about that at length. No dedicated website or communication channel, and we're going to share that with you guys a little bit later. There's no dedicated branding or marketing. There needs to be some interior upgrades, some decorating. We'd love to use the library and billiard room. Right now, there's storage because there's nowhere else to put things. So I think being able to use those rooms would be amazing. We really need new banquet chairs. We heard that from everybody. Storage, on-site catering. So the list was pretty long, and everything manageable. And I think our goal today is to present more the importance of why we're doing this, and the what and how I think is going to come as a second chapter to this, but just the emotional connection that the town has with this really important building to us. So we looked a little bit at the competitive landscape in terms of there being public and historic venues that are options, and country clubs and hotel venues. We worked with students at Iona College, and they helped really dig into this chart, some nitty gritty numbers of competitive. None of this is apples to apples. And so what we looked at was there's no place that's exactly like Waveney. So there's country clubs and there's hotels and there's historic venues that have dedicated on-site catering. But this helped at least look at capacity and number for rentals. And so there's some good details in here. The current rental fees at Waveney House are relatively low compared to other venues. But part of that is that it's not commanding the higher values right now. And so what we're looking at is putting a project together that says, how can we raise the perceived value and the offerings that we have without necessarily spending a lot, but there's some low hanging fruit and there's some expensive, costs that need to be addressed. Sorry, that's the wrong way. So this slide talks a little bit about why we believe in this process, about really digging out to the purpose and the mission and the why of an organization. And I think if we can all be on the same page, we can create engagement and clearer communication and alignment, and also be innovative about what we can do. So I think we appreciate being part of this project. To say the start of it is, let's all agree that we think this is really important, and there's some things we all agree we should do to make it much more, to live up to what it needs to be. So we loved this quote: we shape our buildings, thereafter our buildings shape us. Based on our interviews and research history, we identified values that New Canaan, the town of, shares with Waveney House itself. And so where that overlap comes is how we can really see how we can approach the future. The first one is community. We value the opportunity to gather, to engage, and to celebrate the people and groups that make New Canaan special. We value culture. We celebrate culture. The history of the house is rooted in art, music, history, and education. Elegance. We are inherently beautiful, an architectural masterpiece built with artisan craftsmanship, attention to detail, and exceptional designs. We value heritage. We are committed to the preservation and promotion of this historic landmark. And vitality. We are at our very best when the house is filled with life and we're marking new milestones and beginnings. So I think we can hear in everything that you guys just talked about with Steve too, is that this town likes to celebrate, and they like to celebrate community. And I think this is at the centerpiece of that. And that's what we heard from everybody. So here we talked about our strategy. And when we mean strategy, we say, if our mission is very lofty, this is how do we get there? How do we really maintain this house and do justice to what we're talking about? And so we identified 3 tactics that we can look at. So the first one is to revitalize the house. The second is to engage it as a brand. And the third is then to maximize utilization. So I'm going to walk you through each of these. The first one is to revitalize the house. We believe that Waveney House is the crown jewel of New Canaan. We have heard from many sources over a long period of time that additional structural and design updates are needed. As stewards of the house, it is our responsibility to protect our investment and undertake this critical work as soon as possible. Continuing to invest in necessary upgrades will allow us to maintain the building's relevance and usability, making the venue more competitive with other options and more appealing to its intended audiences. The second strategy is to engage as a brand. We have the opportunity to elevate Waveney House as its own brand. We seek to create an identity that positions the venue as a luxury brand reflective of both its heritage and crown jewel positioning within the community. Through branding, communications, and a dedicated staff, we can lead with the brand persona, values, and standards to achieve the luxury status that this house deserves. The third is a combination of 1 and 2, which is to maximize utilization. With investments in Waveney House's physical structure, along with the development of a new brand identity, we believe that we will set the stage for utilizing the venue at its fullest potential and generating revenue accordingly. Our action items include expanding capacity at events by acquiring a temporary tent and restroom facilities. Our dedicated staff and new branding will increase the venue's perceived value to generate increased usage fees. And leveraging both our physical space and our calendar will enable additional users to access the venue for new and more types of events. I'm going to skip to our summary slide. So here we put this all together, and it really helps us say, where are we going? Why are we doing this? And how are we going to do? And so we combine our values and we make this chart a build. So building on our values, this is how we're going to do it. And our mission will be to invest time, money, and resources to preserve and celebrate this landmark and the community. We see them very aligned, the community and the landmark, and we see so much overlap between these things. So our vision as we look to the future is to create a self-sustainable institution that represents the very best of New Canaan culture, community, heritage, as it moves into its next chapter. And our purpose here is to preserve and celebrate the history and the future of Waveney House. So we say there's work to be done. This is somewhat a laundry list, and we divide it into events, community, and facility through our interviews that we wanted to share. These are in others' words, but things that need to be addressed at some point. We see an opportunity for public and private partnership. And so there's the Conservancy currently, and we looked at other models such as the New Canaan Athletic Foundation and the Greenwich Point Conservancy of places where those groups have worked together to really make a difference. And we think there's an opportunity for Waveney House to be part of that. And then we looked at a roadmap for success. The first thing we talked about was a dedicated staff, and we heard this in almost all of our interviews. A house director would be responsible for representing Waveney House, all knowing about the house's history and details, reflecting Waveney House's values, sharing testimonials, contacts, photos, and floor plans. They'd be responsible for meeting and touring the house with new and interested clients and brides, for the calendar management, all the dates and details, for vendor resources and recommendations, and concierge services. It's come up in most of our meetings as it's a full-time position. I think that's all up for a conversation, but it's somebody that when the phone rings, they would say Waveney House, not Parks and Rec. And I think even if it just starts with that very small detail, you know, so I think that how that position gets defined can be evolutionary, but there are some minor things that right away the perception of a bride calling Parks and Rec doesn't seem like what she might want to do to start with. So we've just presented a couple examples of other websites of similar venues. These are all on the competitive chart, and there are pages just on our website of showing and talking about their dedicated staff. Then we think having a dedicated website would be amazing because it would be a place people could find all the information. So this is sort of a list of how we imagine pages to be. This is currently Waveney House's website sits on the Town of New Canaan's website. So it's very hard to find, and it really doesn't paint the beautiful picture of the capabilities of the house. And so here's just a couple other examples of competitive websites. They're beautiful. They are evocative of the feeling and the luxury that they offer. So these sort of paint what we think Waveney House deserves. Go through them fast. And then this is our sneak peek at what we imagine if we had the opportunity to work with Waveney House on what you would look like and sound like. Just a really beautiful, elegant, timeless logo that could be placed on brides' invitations, on cornhole, on champagne bottles, on china, on glassware, something that when you're in the house, it really feels like you're somewhere as special as it deserves to be. So we also did a sneak peek of what a beautiful dedicated Waveney House website might look like. There's tremendous photography out there already, because we think if we could partner with some brides that have already used the house, that, you know, and just see if they'd be willing to share their photography, that would set itself up. But to
Can't
share.
have the towns taking like their Christmas or holiday
I know.
picture and right behind Waveney
The
House.
backdrop, the $1 million view.
Yeah, I
Steve
mean, it's
Benko
the
used to call
most
it that.
beautiful place, and I think to have a photo gallery and to have all of that.
Please, it speaks for itself. And I've been to a couple weddings there and they're
It's the most
unbelievable,
beautiful place.
unbelievable.
And so then we also had this idea that when you drive up the driveway, if we could have those museum flags, you know, and if there was an exhibit, if there was an event, if there was a community thing, it's a great place to really speak to that. So these are the, I don't know if you can see, you know, when you drive up around that driveway, it would be so fabulous. So that's our ideas. We love this house. It deserves so much attention. And I think some of it's low hanging and easy to do. And some of it's going to take a commitment and an investment, but I think it all seems super worth it.
It was fun for me to work with them on this project because for all of us who've lived here, I mean, you mentioned it, we go to Waveney all the time, right? We're in and out of Waveney, but then when I met you up there that first day and I was showing you guys around and I saw it through their eyes and they're, oh my gosh,
so
this place
special.
is amazing. And you have to take that, you know, that being used to it kind of lens off and see it for what it is. So we
Part of
wanted
that, I mean, Ellen and I, every time we come here, we're like, oh, we live in Greenwich. We totally want to move to New Canaan. This sounds like
not
nicer
tell
and
anybody.
warmer, and you all have this enthusiasm for doing the right thing. And
It's a really special community and yeah, we would love to help you work on this house because it's an amazing place.
And
Yeah,
move here.
and move here, but
Right,
that's
part of the
no,
deal.
that was recorded.
We'd
love to have you.
Your friends
Come
and
to New
grandkids would
Canaan,
be happy
come
about
tell.
that.
All right, well, thank you all.
There's another, well, don't go anywhere.
Oh,
There's
sorry.
another piece of this. We also worked with, I don't know if you know resident Alan Smith. He was president of Four Seasons. He helped us as well as Bob Mantilia helped us gather a lot of information for sort of the business model piece of this. We were starting to put together what it would look like if we really put the rates into place that we think it could garner. And so we've got some of that worked out. We've got some more work to do on that. And Bob's been pulling all of the historical information together into a spreadsheet. So we have that here, but you know, we presented last night, we're in budget season. So there's Tiger's gonna, when he comes to you all in March, you'll see that there's some numbers put in there for some of this work. But we just thought it was important for you to hear from them now and keep that in the back of your mind when, as we enter into the budget season for you all to hear it. So you want to add anything?
No, you covered it. Although Christine Sullivan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Christine Sullivan actually was a big part of the business model. She's with the Small Business Development Center. So she has this neat software package that she was able to take all of the information that Bob gathered for us to put out this business model. So we're fine tuning that as we speak. But
And as you mentioned, we were selected by Iona Business School to
Yeah.
study Waveney House. So we've done a lot of work for the business model and
Right.
to not only enhance the experience, but also maximize revenues for something that right now is underpriced for the market for what you get.
Absolutely.
any questions?
I have a question. Are residents going to get a discount?
So as it is now,
Sounds
there's
like
a
I'm gonna be
resident fee and
priced
a
out.
non-resident fee, and we have taken that into consideration.
I have not so much of a question, more of a comment, because just as a marketer, I'm like, wow, I think you guys did a great job.
Thank you.
Another thought comes to mind, and the Waveney House in itself could be kind of a revenue driving operation. But in addition, I think it can be also considered kind of a halo for New Canaan. So because you're bringing people in when they come to these weddings. So I'm sure people are looking for things to do and places to shop. And so you see a whole, like, you know, on the website, things to do in New Canaan. And so I think it's more than just the Waveney House as a destination for the wedding, but New Canaan as a destination and things to do, you know, to support our businesses and our nonprofits and,
Right.
and everything in the area as well. So I think that's kind of a critical piece in my head too.
So many of you know Bea Watkins over in the rec department. She's the one that really handles all of the weddings now. And when I first met with her, 6 months ago at least, I mean, she has a notebook like this that she will sit down with a prospective bride because they do ask, you know, where do people stay? Where, you know, can we rent out something for the rehearsal dinner, flowers, all of that. So she has all the information as well as driving them into our town and taking advantage of everything that's.
I think it
that's
goes hand in hand with like the athletic department. We wanted this to be a destination place that people want to come play baseball, want to play lacrosse, play football. This is something that's being underutilized and it kind of, like you said, low hanging fruit. It already exists.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like staffing it.
But to your point, what we saw in our research a lot of the venues on their websites have downloadable catalogs and they have advertising. And so because it's digital, you can click onto the local hotel, you can click onto all of that. So it drives it, like it has this bigger growing circle of what it can do.
Ecosystem.
Yeah, no,
So I think there's so many ideas. I mean, I love that.
I would consider that as part of the value.
Yeah.
It's not just contained in that one.
And the other,
Branches out of.
right, the other thing that I should probably mention is many of you might have heard that the Waveney Park Conservancy has hired a executive director. She's part-time at the moment. We were thinking ahead, if she's got, some other available time, that maybe we could work her into this equation of someone that could help out with introducing people to the concept of the wedding.
She's a resident, but she's in the
Hospitality
She ran a
business.
multi-generational hotel in New York City.
Oh, wow.
She's in
Fantastic.
hospitality.
Right. So she might be the right person. Her office is now going to be up there in the second floor at Waveney, so she might be a perfect person to help us launch this.
So you mentioned some obstacles, but you didn't suggest what you're going to do about the obstacles, like it being chopped up and not having air conditioning.
So I think part of on the table, do you want me to speak to it?
Yeah, go for it.
With a smile.
Some brides would like to have a wedding, a tent for a larger wedding. We had terrific tents for the high school
Prom, post-prom.
prom, and you can really only get 160 people in the house, and it's broken up.
Right.
Some people, if they want a wedding for 250, you can do that with a tent outside and be able to accommodate that.
Yeah, it's always seemed to me that if you're really certainly to maximize the financial potential, you got to go with a tent.
And many of
Because it's the only place you can have a modern wedding.
And many
Not
of
in
the
the
other
house.
locations that they looked at have permanently installed tents. I don't know if we're going in that direction, but we would like to possibly explore if there's a location that's not going to interfere with that view that we could maybe put up. Have you been to Cranberry Park in Norwalk? They have a platform, if you will, that they put a tent on all summer long for weddings, but we'd like to be able to accommodate tents if we could, to accommodate the big, large weddings.
So I'm just curious what people, there's really only two choices, right? You either do it below the veranda in front of the view, or you do it in the front driveway.
Off to the side.
Oh, off to the side.
To the east side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Off to the side.
And do we think we're going to get any popular concerns about people's image of walking through Waveney Park? And
Sure. Well, yeah, but this wouldn't be up all the time. This would be just for the wedding that comes and says, I want it. So yeah, if the wedding's on Saturday, the tent goes up usually Wednesday, Thursday, and then it comes down on Sunday. So not all the time. And we had the huge tent up at Summer Theater all summer long. And now that was in a different location, but
well, if you're going to maximize the financial potential of this, the tent's got to be up for the whole wedding season. Because you're not going to have we're talking a big tent. It's going to have to hold.
Yeah. But here's the thing, Tom.
A big group.
It's filled up anyway, even with the size that exists today. She's booking into 2023. So in some of the research that we found out, it wasn't a matter of we're booking it. It's booked. It's not like people are turning us. Some weddings are not appropriate because they want to have a larger wedding, but we are filling the place with the restrictions that we have now on size.
But the current financial return wouldn't justify the investment.
Oh, I don't know. We could definitely.
No, what do we get?
Currently.
What do we get? $150,000 a year of gross?
Yeah.
And we're going to use that to justify multi-million-dollar investments in air conditioning. And you got to go big to make this financially viable, I would think. So I just don't think we should avoid that. Discussion. What we're leaning toward is, and I don't really have philosophical objection to it, but I do think that there might be a lot of people in town that would wonder
Keep in mind though, Tom,
whether that would fit.
we use the building right now for activities. It became a public building as opposed to a residence, right? And in order to keep the ability to service a lot of activities, you need the second floor. And the second floor is not compliant. We need to put an elevator. And we don't have any exemptions anymore from the federal law. And we need institutional bathrooms, rather than just a couple of small bathrooms that when you have 200 or 300 people on that property.
I think one of those not in the budget this year.
It is.
The elevator, I'm sorry, the bathrooms are in the budget.
There.
Are they?
We're trying to bring the number down though.
Can I ask what, Tom, when you were saying we need a tent, why would you need a permanent tent? I mean, I got married and they put up the tent and took it down at the Wainwright House in Rye. And it was a big tent, but it wasn't there all the time. They put it up in like no time and they took it down. So I was just trying to understand why we think we need it like permanent.
Anyway, a lot. When people are in the park on weekends, there would be a tent there that.
So you're saying people would see it all the time because it would be up. I mean, but I don't know that all the weddings would require a tent, but I see what you're saying.
Well, if you're trying
when
to
it's
make the
up.
most money, you want the bigger weddings, right? I mean,
Yeah.
No, yeah,
wanna
it's
accommodate
quality.
Well, everybody doesn't want a big wedding.
Yeah.
You want to be able to accommodate those who do.
I'm just saying, if you want to maximize profit, you want the bigger wedding.
Not
Necessarily,
profit
I don't
comes-
necessarily, because you're paying the same amount to rent the space. So whether you have 100 people or 250, everybody's paying the same entry fee.
Right.
Like everybody pays $10,000 to rent the Waveney House. Doesn't matter if you have 10 people or 200, right? So, and that's where we're making our money. If we're not doing the catering or we're not supplying the flowers, it doesn't matter how many people you have. You don't make more money per head. Am I correct? So we would have to find that appropriate rental fee for the facilities that where we do make money, no matter how big it is, right? But I understand your point about the tent, because if presumably you want to have a wedding every weekend, and if every weekend means you have a tent up from Wednesday to Saturday or to Sunday, then we have a tent there. But that would be a great problem to have, as far as I'm concerned.
I think quality is more important than quantity. I really don't support a tent being up at Waveney, all summer long. I was recently giving a birthday party there and we were near the veranda, and because there was a wedding going on, they said you have to move 300 feet away from the house, which we were happy to do. But there was a lot of other people there that were kind of near there, and because it's a public park, people want to enjoy it. So I think a tent is fine. And I know the high school did it for the prom and whatever, but I think on a regular basis, if that's the revenue driver, I don't think that's the right direction to go in. It doesn't sound like that you're going to do that every weekend.
No.
And by
I
the
don't
way,
think
I
the
agree
tent is a
about.
revenue driver. I think it's just another opportunity to say
Exactly.
you
Right.
could do it if you wanted to. But in the research we did, all the country clubs that are putting up tents are putting them up for the Saturday night and taking them down. So it wouldn't be there permanently. And I think part of it is just creating opportunity for events, whether it's a wedding or a fundraiser or something, it's there. But I think having it, the Wednesday night things, like you wouldn't want to look at a tent all the time. It's the most beautiful view.
Right. By the way, I agree about the chairs. I've given a couple of parties there and people want to rent the chair
Everyone said that.
covers because they're so old and they don't fit with the whole ambiance of the place. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but Board of Finance and the town council in the past have been asking for, all right, how much is it what are we putting into Waveney House? And what are we getting out of it? And we still don't have those answers. And to Tom's point, if we're going to invest the money, we want to see an equal return.
So we're working on that business model for you. We gotta put,
Because otherwise,
we are
it's
suggesting
it's hard to keep passing things in the budget if we're not,
the rental rates haven't been increased since 2017.
which is crazy.
So our next step is that the March 9th Parks and Rec Commission is going to take up the rates so that we can, because we're booking now to 2023. So we need to capture that now. Because if we're renting something to someone in 2023 now, we've got to put the rates in place. So that's the first step. And then we've got to, run, as I said, we've done this preliminary run of the numbers, but we need to have a better handle on that.
I would think though that I've been following the Waveney House elevator issue since I moved here practically. So I'm shocked we haven't gotten that done yet. That's a disability issue. And that's an accessibility issue that I would really hope that wouldn't depend on a revenue generation. And I really think that that's something we need to take care of.
Well, one of the reasons.
I know about the elevator issue. I said, we've done a lot of research on the.
No, I
elevators.
understand that. I just don't,
It's just phased.
well, I've
bathrooms
moved
go
here in
first.
Well, I think-
2016. It's 2022. I don't understand how an elevator in a 3-story house.
Well, I think one of the reasons it phased was the town bodies were saying, show me the purpose of the facility before we make all these capital investments.
We have to justify it.
And so that's one of the reasons you guys are here, right? So that we'll understand that there's a purpose.
Well, to me, a disability issue is a
No,
justifiable
but it
enough
assumes,
purpose, but to
but it
comply with
assumes
the
you,
ADA.
and I hate to be, iconoclast, but all this assumes that you need that you have a purpose for Waveney, that you're using it.
Yeah.
You know, the far extreme to the rosy picture you guys are painting is that we would analyze, you know, the park and say that actually the interior use of the house is not a compelling value for the town. I mean, yes, we do weddings there, and that's a good thing for the people who get married, but for the people who use the park on a regular basis, particularly townspeople, inside the building doesn't have an obvious compelling value compared to its cost. At least that's the question. And so I think where we've come is and I'm getting the sense maybe from both bodies, is that we're sort of tired of the discussion. We're leaning toward what Hillary's saying is, damn it, let's comply with ADA. Let's accept the fact that we're going to keep the house open. You know, I would have hoped for a more hard-nosed business analysis along the way, but
That's the thing, that everyone in town, qualitatively speaking, likes the house and has many good things to say about it. But when it comes down to the quantitative stuff.
Yeah, it's not.
Christina's got her hand raised.
Oh, okay. Christina, are you out there?
Yes, I'm here. I just wanted to add that it just doesn't sound competitive to me to say that you're going to have a tent, whether it's part-time or full-time, and that you're going to charge the maximum price regardless of how many people you have attending, because it takes away the competitiveness, and it would take us right off the box when people are looking for a venue. So you have to be conscientious of the size of the facility that's being rented. In the country clubs right now, if they need a tent for the most part for a large gathering, they have a tent company come, because even owning your own tent, most companies will not put up your tent, and then you require the labor and the effort to put it up and take it down. What sounds more logical to me is to designate a paved, semi-permeable area where you're going to put the tent, and have that paved and leveled to a degree that putting up a tent it's a no-brainer, and you have one size tent that will always be used in that space.
yeah, I don't think anybody, I didn't really mean to debate, and I'm not sure anybody else is debating the difference between owning or renting. It's not that. The point is, it would be there a lot. If you're trying to maximize value, the tent will be there a lot. We have to accept that's part of this proposal. That's where we're headed. Or we're not going to make any more money than we make now.
I don't know if that's the
Make more
case.
money. The idea when it came up was just maximizing utilization, not maximizing profitability. Because
That doesn't make sense to me at all.
well,
If you have a site that is able to handle, you know, a group of 300 people, or you don't, and if you can only handle 120 people, why would you say that has the same value as a location that can handle 300 people?
No, but the people who decide they want a large wedding, they'll pay for the tent.
Yeah.
Everybody's not going to pay for the tent. So
Right.
it's, you know,
Right, well, okay, but that'll,
there's people
Yes.
that like the venue and are willing to pay more.
You'd have an a la carte menu to say, you want this, you want this,
Right.
you want chairs, it's going to cost you. You want tent, it's going to cost you. I
well,
mean,
the tent would come with a fee. So if you call Stanford Tent and you get a tent, or whoever you're going to call, you know, New Canaan charges, or Waveney House charges $2,500 for every tent, because it's used on our land.
Right.
But I do challenge the idea that it's more or less the reason you would pay more is because there are meals that you pay more because you have 300 people that you're trying to feed. When I had a wedding, there was a flat fee for.
But we don't have a caterer.
I
You're paying the
know.
caterer
No,
then,
what I'm
not
saying
Waveney
is
House.
you'd play, I'm agreeing. I'm saying you
Yeah.
pay it the flat fee for the space. We're not caterers.
Right.
So it really doesn't fluctuate all that much because we're not catering. So it's not a by person, it's not a per person. It's you are paying for that venue, however many people you have. And then if you wanted a tent, that would be an extra cost. But it's not like, well, I have 20 people, so I'm only going to pay X amount. That's not how it works.
Right.
You're paying for the space. So I do challenge that assumption that was brought up. That's all.
If it is something we're to consider, I mean, there's a significant backlog. I mean, I finance some event space specifically for weddings, and the pandemic really pushed a lot of things back. So if it's something we were going to consider, you can capture the market right now. I'm sure there's a high demand. Some people that would typically get married on Saturdays are now considering Wednesdays, and they've been engaged for 2.5 years, and they're like, let's go. I want to have my wedding, even if it's on a Wednesday night. So maybe that would put the tent up all week, Tom, but I think if you're looking to capture the financial aspect of this, now would be the time.
Well, COVID also really drove down the number of people attending weddings. I mean, I went to several last summer that normally would have been a couple hundred that were, 75, just because the whole COVID.
I think the pendulum swung
It's swinging
back
the other
because I finance multiple of these, and one being I'm not gonna mention actually, but Kim, you were there with me, and it's an event space in Manhattan, and they're booming. The weddings are booming now.
Okay.
I think of price elasticity. It'd be interesting to know how much we could charge.
Yeah, one of my concerns, and this is a little bit off the topic, but people who live in New Canaan do like to use the house. And they don't really know, can they go upstairs? There's a lot of storage. So I guess one of the things I think is important to be mindful of, and you guys do great work, is can people from New Canaan, when this gets all fixed up, can they go and sit in the library and read a book? And that's just kind of an existential question that I'd like to kind of throw out there that I think is important as we create a luxury brand. It's also a town resource, and it's historic for people, and there's beautiful pictures of the history of the house. So I just think that's something to just kind of put out
We
there.
talked about that actually the first day that we went there, and we were standing out on the patio and we were saying, wouldn't it be nice if there were some chairs and tables out here? It was a July afternoon and we could have sat down and brought our lunch and had but right now it's just
So many
all
ideas.
cleared up.
Even a
Upstairs
cafe,
rooms,
like putting a cafe in, or
Go up
part
and
of
read a
that.
book.
You can't use the library if it's closed because it's got tables in it,
Exactly.
right? So there's so
So there's
many.
no place
Part
to
of that
sit.
communication though is having a website that says community hours, or maybe every Tuesday is there's no events and it's just come gather. It's a space to gather. So I think the creativity, the usage, all of that, it just needs to be addressed. And I think a lot of what we were tasked with doing was just uncovering that this is a treasure in New Canaan.
Yeah.
The choices are whether it's ever going to be profitable by making weddings. I don't know what numbers we're going to come up with and we're going to say you're going to start becoming a profitable organization at Waveney House. But it's this amazing building sitting in the middle of this town that's a treasure, and the choices are to preserve it and keep it compliant or to not use it. And that would be so sad.
Well, I think part of the discussion that Tucker, I know I've had with you, and I think with the gal who I was interviewed by, said, the second floor goes unused, basically all week. And we have a number of community organizations who really are looking for meeting space. And I would think that the more organizations you have in the house, the greater the awareness of the house is, and it spreads out, it telescopes out. So if we can, take it to another level and do that survey of the organizations, where they meet now or don't meet, where they would like to, what their needs are, and see how, the second level of analysis, can unfold.
Penny, I could not agree more. I think that meeting space is at such a high premium. It's so hard to find here. Even having like an online sign up where people could go and sign up that they're going to have this meeting room at Waveney House, it would be so helpful. Even co-working space. I mean, today I had a telehealth appointment at home and there were people working in my house and I had no privacy. And I was like, it would be so nice to have somewhere to go quiet with the door closed where I could have my telehealth appointment. And if there was a room at Waveney House, if we're talking about a chopped up second floor where somebody in town could have a co-working space, could go there for a meeting or something, and you could just sign up online. How amazing would that be? A way to use a choppy space and a way to really maximize that use. There's a myriad of ways to use it for good, but
So
it
it's
has to be
whether or not
accessible.
That's your kind of research, or is it something Park and Rec Commission can add? I mean, I offered to do it myself some years ago, and
there's so much potential. Is what I like, tapping in and having somebody.
Well, it would be
Yeah.
it would be beneficial, I think, to understand that the two extremes and something in the middle. The one extreme is just milk it for profit, and there's bound to be some adverse impact on community use. The other extreme is just pure community use. Let's just eat the costs and love it.
I would
course,
pay
with the
for a
library,
co-working space.
with the library coming,
Just saying.
the library coming, that's going to be a less compelling need, void. Somewhere in the middle maybe is what you're looking at, right? You're trying to balance, as I understand it, let's maximize without butchering the community use, let's maximize the value for what we have.
Both, let's maximize community, let's maximize profitability, let's maximize just the opportunity here, but I think there is and Greenwich now, Saks just opened a Saks Works. I don't know if anyone's seen, but they took that old Ralph Lauren. It's actually brand new Ralph Lauren, which is insane, sat empty up, on Greenwich Avenue for the last 6 years. It was such a sad thing. And they have it as a community space. It's a restaurant and it's actually with WeWorks, but it's such a great opportunity to connect. And that could be a revenue stream. I mean, for a small fee to be able to say, let everyone gather, they made a little cafe to get coffee. Like there's so much stuff that you could do. It just needs somebody to pay attention to, but the potential is amazing.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. We've hit the 8:30 mark, so we've got to keep moving. We got more on the agenda.
Thank
And
you.
great presentation. A lot of work to do, a lot of work done. Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, this is a big announcement.
Oh, cool.
Ah,
How fun is that?
Greenwich
Greenwich
has
Park?
Billy
When is
Joel
that
for
happening?
their annual concert.
That is
4 weeks
super
up, Liver.
cool. Great job, ladies.
Bye.
Very
Can we
much.
get tickets?
Guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Tucker.
All right, item number 8 on our agenda, local voting districts, approval of a request from the register of voters for new local voting districts, boundaries as mandated by the state of Connecticut legislature. We have John Amarilios and Joan McLaughlin here tonight to present. Thank you. You have the floor.
In your packets, you probably have an electronic version of this map. You should.
I think we do.
Good. Actually, this is just an informative explanation of what's going on. We haven't really subdivided any of the state mandated districts, so there's nothing to approve. But just so that you understand, we're going from 3 local voting districts to 6 districts. This was mandated by the state legislature, and there was no input from our offices in terms of doing this. As you can see there, much of the western part of town remains the same. The old District 1 has been slightly expanded. And the old District 2 and 3 is basically pushed. The old District 2 is pushed to the northeast. What's left of District 3 has been pushed into the corner against Norwalk and Darien. And 3 new little districts were formulated, 4, 5, and 6, on the east end of town, from the center of town to the Wilton border. Again, we are not privy to the wisdom going behind all these changes, but what it has created is the following issue, that we've had to now seek out a new voting location for these 3 new districts. Joan and I think, agreed that we wanted to minimize the trauma to the voters in District 2 and 3. So we're going to continue having those voters continue going to their known election polling place, which is Saks. And the voters who now reside within Districts 4, 5, and 6 will be going to East School. I had the understanding and approval of the town clerk, who basically is in agreement that this makes sense. So we are going to basically, at this point, we're planning on using the gymnasium, the auditorium, and one of the big art rooms at East for this purpose. We've discussed it with the chief, and he also indicates that if need be, we can change the traffic flow on the street in front of the East School, so it can be converted to one way if it gets too busy. So that's really what's going on. Now, in terms of local districts, there's no effect here. Basically, all the districts will continue being the same. I mean, when we have a local election here for a municipal election,
He means the ballot will be.
the ballots will be the same.
So we'll go from in a non-municipal election, we'll go from 3 different ballots to 6. So that's the difference.
Yeah, it's difficult to hear you.
I'm sorry, that's where this, I'm not vaccinated. So in a municipal election, everybody gets the same ballot. So that's not going to be a problem every other year, but we will go now from having 3 districts with 3 different ballots to 6 districts with 6 different ballots. That's what John is trying to say.
Yeah, well, and in addition to it, it imposes upon us a need to acquire twice the amount of equipment, which is, we're scrambling around the state right now trying to acquire new tabulators and bases. The problem is all this equipment is about a decade and a half old. A lot of it has been cannibalized by the various municipalities. So we're on an egg hunt here.
Yeah, the state doesn't know how much longer they'll use it. So that's a problem too. So we don't want to buy anything new. Because in a
There's
year,
nothing.
the state might tell you that we can't use this anymore. So George Cody's been really good about trying to find tabulators, old tabulators from towns that their districts are less now. So maybe they're going from 2 districts to 1 or 3 districts to 2. So we're trying to procure tabulators that are not new, because new from LHS, who supplies these, would be $6,000 a year. And we don't want to do that because, again, we don't know what the state's going to tell us next year. They might tell us we're getting all new equipment. So
Now, we found some bases up in Wallingford, so we'll have to give you a call and see if we can get ourselves a van.
No problem.
Haul this stuff down here.
Supply chain issue.
Yeah.
So am I correct that right now we have
3 districts.
running in New Canaan in terms of candidates for state offices?
Right, okay, so you have, right now, we have in the 125th, that's your house, that's Tom O'Day.
Mhm.
In your 142nd, you have Lucy Datham, so those are the 2 House reps. And then you have 2
Senate reps.
Senates, the 26th, which is Will Haskell, who's going to give up that position.
Yeah.
And then the 36th, who's Ryan Fazio. So what's added is in the old District 2, what's added is House District 42. So we'll go from having 2 state House representatives to 3. And we'll still have 2 state Senate. Okay, so I can't say why the legislature divided it up this way, but I have a feeling is that Lucy Datham is in New Canaan, and so they wanted her to be in New Canaan. So I think that's where we get at least 2 more districts that we didn't have.
Right. So are these what you're calling a district in New Canaan, which is a district in New Canaan, would that be conjoined with parts of another town?
Yes.
Well, the state offices crisscross the state, the
Right.
town boundaries.
So we're really just getting a piece of.
Yeah, we're getting a
These various
smidgen of some of this other stuff, and some of this is going up towards Richfield. So, but
And beyond.
it's beyond our scope here. I mean, we just administer what we're told.
No, I'm just curious.
But it's just added a complexity. Now, I don't know if we're going to be faced with additional COVID issues or not. We are also faced with a demographic of older volunteers who basically may or may not be available in the summer for primaries. And in general, it just adds an additional difficulty in terms of getting the right people to do this work, because it's very hard to find someone who's willing to get there at 5 and stay till 9 o'clock at night. So it just adds a lot more complexity to this. And as far as the equipment goes, we will try our best to see what we can procure at the most advantageous price possible. but it's like used cars today. There's just a limited number of them out there, and we have to find equipment that may have to be upgraded or repaired.
So our motto is cheap is good, but free is better.
So you're,
I like that.
We're working on the free.
so your budget is under the, is it under the town? Which section of the budget are you guys, do you fall under? You're not under Claudia's budget.
No, we have our own.
You have your own budget. Okay. So have you budgeted in this coming budget for any additional
Yes,
expenses?
I
Okay.
have in this coming budget, and what expenses before this, before Linda left, he told me what to do.
Okay.
Just to ask the town council, not ask the finance department. or
We
finance
we
director
may be
for money.
revisiting you later on in the year
Well, yeah. So, I mean, that was my next point is if you do need support and help, you know where to find us. So
Yeah.
please, you guys do yeoman's work with a very small staff. So please come find us if you need help and you need whatever you need. We have to create a situation that's easy for our citizens to vote and make sure everybody's eligible, and to get, when we have these elections, I know you guys are working around the clock. So it's a lot of work, and we thank you for all the work you pour into it.
Well, we thank you for your acknowledging that, and we'll keep you posted, but it's moving along at this point. And like I said, the most difficult thing is we're scrambling for equipment, and then we're going to be scrambling for bodies to basically do the work. So
Yeah, but if I can point out, we have one district that the legislature created that has 38 voters in it.
That little orphan one, the sixth.
Number
As we
6.
call it, the orphan.
The orphan, I saw
I hate to
that.
call it that. We love you. Sixth
It's
district.
just crazy. I mean, it's, I appeal to our elected officials, and I've been looking for some kind of state statute or regulation that says if it's under a certain amount that can it be considered to be broken up? And their answer is, well, what happens if we put it somewhere else and someone loses by 38? So it's 38 votes. So but,
Those 38 people better vote because they're going to stand out.
I know, but I just
We're gonna
find
get a lot of
it
door
such
knocks.
an expense to the town. I really do. And just, I mean, I can't believe that.
I wish this was the only expense that Hartford sends our way, but it
I
isn't. So
know, but to me, it's like bizarre.
Mhm.
Bizarre that you have, so you have 20 houses. I went into the assessor's office, you have 20 houses here, physically 20 houses. And this is how you broke it up for me.
yeah, that's above our pay grade, unfortunately.
I'm just wondering if there's any way you can get college students to help out for
Yeah, I
the
was thinking the
primaries
same
in the
thing.
summer, because I know a lot of them need money and it's at night from 5 to 9.
we've had experiences with college
Yeah,
students, and that's fine. We need to just make sure that people are willing to make a commitment and then stick to it on the day.
What's the age limit the minimum age? Is it 18 or?
Well, no, it's 16. They just can't touch a ballot. So we'll have them do something where they don't have to touch a ballot.
Okay,
And
I've got 2 or 3 that can help out.
What's the hourly wage that we're currently paying?
We're currently paying 15, but we've had a discussion and we think we need to pay 18.
That's
Oh,
probably a
it's a
good
paid
idea.
position?
It's probably a good idea.
I'll take it. I'll do it.
I don't know how much they pay babysitters now, so.
Don't start.
More than that, more than that.
A lot more than when I was babysitting.
Well,
All right.
the critical thing is they've got to show up at 5 and they've got to stay the day or stay their portion of the shift. You just can't take off, which is
why we feed them lunch.
Oh, there's lunch included?
Oh, yeah.
I'm in. Lunch and
We
you get paid?
We don't want them to go out.
Better
and
than my day
not
job.
come back. So anyhow, that's.
Joan, thank you, John, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. And again, we all can't thank you enough for all the work you do. So
Yep.
do we vote on it or do you say? We have,
We have to approve it.
we have to approve it. All right.
We have to
Approve
approve
the
the
boundaries.
districts, but we really don't have a choice.
you don't.
It's kind of funny.
Under duress.
All right.
All right. So we need a motion then. Who wants to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the new voting districts.
All right. Second. Mike. All in favor? Christina?
Discussion,
Discussion, go ahead.
what happens if we turn it down?
They'll ignore us.
I think that the state would tell you too bad,
Okay,
right?
Yeah.
all right. The question's been asked.
What do you say, Christina? Are you up?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have a financial update of recent financial results. Josh Kaufman. Are you in the house, Josh?
I am. I am going to share my screen right now. Let's see. You should have the January financials in front of you on your tablets as well. But I think you should be able to see this as well. Okay. So, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. These are the year-to-date financials for January 2022. And starting with the revenue side, the total year-to-date revenue is currently at 147.3 million, which is almost 99% of the total budgeted revenue for the year.
The other one was great.
Wow.
The main driver, of course, being tax collections, currently at just over 100% of the budgeted 140 million, which is sitting at 141 million. The secondary drivers are really kind of the usual suspects that you've heard about for the past few months. Building permits are outpacing last year by 130,000 and currently at about 84% of what was budgeted. Conveyance fees are trailing last year by 86,000, but are still at 133% of what was budgeted for the entire year. And on the expense side of things, we're kind of trending as expected. We're 60% of the way through the year, and we're at just about 50% of what was budgeted for expenses, which is has us about 2% better off than we were at the same point last year. And that's pretty much it. If you guys have any questions on either revenues or expenses, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? Just give us a sec, Josh.
Sure, of course.
Okay. Any questions? Everything looks like it's trending well.
Yeah.
All right. Josh, we're very
Yeah,
happy so
definitely.
far. So keep up the good work.
Yeah.
And
Happy to be here.
we owe you one too. I mean, you're deep into our agenda. So Tucker, make note of this. We want Josh earlier next time. No.
I very much appreciate that.
Josh, Tucker's saying everybody has to be first. So but we do owe you one. Thank you so much.
One day I'll get there.
This isn't late.
Thanks for all your help.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay. Here we go. You're up again. Item number 10, budget review discussion, review and discussion of the budget meeting process and calendar. So, oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't have the calendar, right?
We don't have the calendar, we were just talking about the process because we're still developing the calendar with.
Oh, okay, well.
Yeah. So we just want to take a minute and for, this is really for the new members that are with us to talk about, just take 2 minutes to talk about how we do this and what the process is. So some of you have actually, I think a lot of you have actually watched the Board of Finance meeting so far, and that gives you sort of a taste of what we're going to be looking at. So there'll be presentations from all the departments will come through. We'll have big presentations from the Board of Ed. And as you know, these are meetings that we have scheduled, and it'll seem as though when March comes around, it'll seem like we live with each other. I mean, we're here a lot. You're going to a lot of meetings, but we're reviewing a lot of information. So that's sort of the heaviest lift that we have all year. So be ready for that.
But you all have the dates, to be clear. You all have the dates. We scheduled all that. Remember, we changed St. Patrick's Day because many of you. So you have the dates. What I'm working on is just finalizing who presents when. Some people are away at different times, so I'm still working through some of that.
And we try to divide it up so the meetings aren't too long or too late. We've, in the past, we've sort of divided it out so we're not here too long, but it's a chance, each department, I see Tiger up there, each department has the opportunity to really go in depth in terms of their budget for the year and what they're doing. And it gives us a chance to really dive in at a much deeper level than we normally do. So, it's a good time to ask questions. It's a good time to familiarize yourself with the numbers, and we'll be unfortunately, we're looking at a pretty big increase this year. In our job, we can only cut, we can't add. So that will be our charge.
And I know many of you have been attending the Board of Finance meetings. Thank you for that. And tomorrow night is their last in terms of departments presenting. And they'll have, their final review, and we'll go into a public hearing and a vote with them. We're struggling right now because the school breaks are falling at a terrible time you have 2 requirements to post these items in 2 consecutive weeks of the paper, and advertisers' deadline is Tuesday. Many of their meetings are on Tuesdays. So that's part of the challenge in getting this all scheduled. But thank you for following along for the Board of Finance as well.
Is there any, I'm just thinking about the fact that some of these departments have already presented a lot of the
major,
the whole, they're giving you the whole speech. Whereas, if you're paying attention to the Board of Selectmen's meeting or the Board of Finance, do they really need to go through? Dr. Letzi comes here and he puts on a great show, but hopefully we've all kind of watched that, so we don't have to sit here and.
I guess that would be up to you all.
We've talked about this in the past where it's almost.
Mark, let me jump in 100%. I've been saying this the entire time I've been on town council. I think that by the time these department heads come to us, I don't think, in my personal opinion, I don't need anything more than a top level summary of what their budget is. And if there's any questions we have to ask collectively, ask them at that point.
Right.
Rather than have Dr. Lutzi sit here, have Tiger sit through another meeting and like hours on, and they giving the same. It's got to be the 4th time, right? We have committee meetings for us. They have their own internal meetings. They have Board of Selectmen, they have Board of Finance. Then they come to us for, the same show. So I think that it's just the humane thing.
Because in the case of these committee, I've already sat
Right.
and listened to Tiger present in our committee along with the Board of Finance members.
Yeah.
We know the issues. That's what our committee should be conveying now. If there are any issues, for example, I'm not going to speak
Right.
for Tiger or any others.
Well,
but
years ago, we
I
used to
have-
even like with Board of Ed being the big one, we had a joint meeting with Board of Finance and Town Council where it was just the presentation. And then the deliberation was broken out.
I'd rather just deliberate. Ask the questions.
Well, and that's, we, through our committees, we've actually, like in years past, we've given Tom on the Board of Ed, we give him all of our questions in advance. And there's a huge document that the Board of Ed has with a bunch of Q&A that you read through, and a lot of the questions that you'd like to ask have already been asked. And if you read up on it, it answers a lot of questions. It's amazing how much information's out there.
Like Dr. Letzi, in all due respect, he comes in, he says, this is what the school's done and we've accomplished. We know what an amazing job he's done. He doesn't need to sell us on that.
But let me just ask, if I may, show of hands, how many people have actually watched this year's Board of Ed presentation? So, okay.
I haven't yet, but
You can.
You should go on YouTube and you're all there. So it's.
when are we going to finally get this right? I mean, I've been here for how many years now? And how many years have I said the same thing? These poor department heads present selectmen and our subcommittees and the Board of Finance and then us. I mean, come on, guys.
Josh and I were talking today. There's actually another sort of strategy that you could try, and that is possibly because I think some of the departments love to come and tell you about all the great work they're doing. And while it is a hardship to be out night after night in these long presentations, Bethany showed up tonight. She thought she was presenting to you all tonight. She was confused with her dates. And
Oh, no.
she said, oh, darn, I was excited to tell them. But what we talked about, Josh and I literally had this conversation today because we're keeping notes now that we've transitioned over with a new CFO, just challenges that we had this year and stumbling blocks that we had this year that we could, work on for next year. And we thought maybe we rotate departments through just all year long so that Bethany could come and do a presentation outside of the budget cycle and just tell you about all of the things that she's doing. And that's just, thank you, Bethany. That was wonderful. And now we know that. And the next month it could be somebody else.
I would love that.
So
I think as a
trips with
newbie,
that?
I understand it's not humane what you guys have been through, but I don't know all the different departments as well. And I don't see that many people on the Board of Finance meeting, like in the public. I think do more people come to our meetings? And is it better in terms of the public to see the?
Depends who's
so-
presenting and yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I just feel like I'd like to see all those presentations. I could watch them if you want me to, but I like that idea of them coming in throughout the year.
Right,
That's a
rather
great
than
idea.
condensing it all into just the 3 weeks of the budget cycle for each body. Maybe you have.
Kim, I think I'm sorry, you think you make a good point, because it's not just for us. It should be for, exposure to the town if they have the opportunity to like.
Well, that's what I was.
Yeah, so I think you make a really good point. And I think Tucker, your idea of having them come throughout the year would be, I think, wonderful, because it's hard to digest all of that all at once anyway. And to be able to do it throughout the year might be a lot easier.
You know, a couple of years ago, the town council members sat through the Board of Finance meetings. And that's when the presentations were given. Because I sat in that back table.
That was before we had Zoom, so now you
For
can.
every single one of those meetings.
watching on TV.
We weren't asking questions.
Right.
It was just the Board of Finance asking questions, but that's the only time the presentations were given.
And
Well,
the thing with the public hearing it, again, it went through Board of Selectmen, the Board of Finance, like these are publicized, televised, Zoomized type of presentations, right? So it's not as if it's all done behind closed doors, then it comes to us in March.
Right.
And we're just saying, yeah, give me your top line and then we'll give you the okay. We're not saying that because it's been out in the public domain. We post our budgets. It's already out there. So I think by the time it gets to us, I think it's been scrubbed by Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. It's been out in the public. If we're utilizing our committee function, it's been out there as well. I mean, we had our public safety one and it was on Zoom, and whoever wanted to attend, they can attend. So we're not hiding anything in the last couple of weeks of March. The other point too, which I like what Tucker's saying, and what you said, Mark, about we don't need to hear how awesome they are. We know how awesome they are. And remember, most of all of their budgets are locked up in fixed labor costs. So what is it other than that? Like we know, like there's a new teacher contract. We now have a new DPW, new fire, new police. We know what more than the majority of what their budget is to begin with.
And we
right?
approved it.
Right.
Right.
And we approved it.
We
So
approved
what
the
are we-
labor
we're
agreement.
always talking about that little piece of, we always say pencils and paper, in the operating budget. In the capital, that's a different kind of animal.
That's a good
I
point.
think you can streamline some of the, the presentation part that we do know, but I do think the financial overview, the rehashing, I think that is good for the public to hear. Maybe they don't follow the, Board of Selectmen meetings or the Board of Ed, but they follow town council. I don't know. I just feel like there's a part of it that is our duty to the public to go over these at each board level. Maybe they don't have to be as long.
Yeah, a compromise seems logical, but we've been around long enough to see the public sort of wake up mid-March-ish, and all of a sudden with us, and the years past, the last 4 years, remember, we've held with zero increases. This year, there's going to be some public that are going to want to weigh in when they see a 6-point-something% increase. They're going to want to come see us. And you may find, as Kim mentioned, you may find some folks that come out late in the game. I mean, we've sat through some votes here where you could not move in this room. I mean, there were more people in this room than you could stay with standing room only 5-6 people deep. So, it's sometimes we do get a crowd for that final, budget call. So
I think it would be helpful too, to merge the web presence of both, like the Board of Ed has their own separate, they post their meetings separately, they post their videos separately, and the town has its calendar. Like, can we put the Board of Ed meetings on the town calendar? So there's only one place.
Yes, that would be really nice. Because it comes in on channel 78, not 79.
Right, there's like, it would be good to merge that front.
We don't know when their meetings are.
No, you'd have to actually go to their website to
Which is,
find.
you can get to their website through the town website.
Yeah, right. But if you go to the town calendar, which is what I do every single meeting, and click on the agenda, it would just be nice if the Board of Ed was a link right on the days that
We
they
have a
meet.
website meeting tomorrow, Kevin.
Kevin, you moved up.
Two comments. One, the Board of Selectmen process is really to scrub the budget to make sure that it's as accurate as possible, because there's a lot of gathering of information that as we go through our meetings, we get it more and more refined. By the time we get to the Board of Finance, they're really beginning to look at what levers do we have to, we're not gonna have a 6.5% increase. Hopefully, we're gonna get down to 4.5% or so, because we have some tools to use. I think if you come to the Board of Finance meeting when they review that and understand how they got there, there's not much more you want to try to cut, unless there's some particular item, but going through the whole presentation, I think tends to be having sat where you sat.
Yeah.
And making token cuts at the end doesn't really help anybody. But it's a process, and I think the Board of Finance really does a terrific job with their liaison meetings to understand, because they can add as well as subtract.
Right. This year, there's been more liaison meetings together than in my prior years. So that's why I'm saying it's been.
Well, and I think back to that public piece that you're talking about, I think that the public is so well trained now to do the Zoom, to go back and look at a video. I think there's a sort of a paradigm shift that people are more accustomed to be able to get the information that way. So hopefully more have followed along. And it might not just be when you say they tune into our meeting, but when they replay it, at the next day, whatever time they.
Well, that's why I think it would be a good time to get their stuff on the town calendar. So I don't know. Yeah, the meetings and the link to the agenda, the link to the video.
So can we commit to some kind of
Trimming.
enhancement?
Yeah. So let me ask.
Time frame that I
Yeah.
give.
So I watched the Board of Ed presentation at the Board of Finance, and it's a lengthy presentation, and I don't think we need that hour and
It was long.
half. I mean, it was 90+ minutes.
Well,
It was-
one of the reasons it was is because the Board of Finance was so actively engaged.
Yeah.
Just to be fair, but let me make a quick point about the Board of Ed, Brian's presentation. He does it 16 times in this season. However, he loves every one of those times, and he would love nothing more than to go through it all with us. Having said that, if you don't want that, we can manage it down to a much more abbreviated version and emphasize a discussion of maybe what the key issues are for us, rather than giving credit, because you guys are instructing me to say
that, Tom, because I think last year, there were just a couple issues that we didn't have enough time in a public manner to talk about. It was more,
Presentation.
at the end, the rushing,
Right.
talking
Mm.
to someone
spent
to
so
get
much
more
time,
information.
yeah.
There was that wasn't in the public. And there was a lot of difficult accounting
Yeah. And I
of
think
certain things that I think, we'd rather get to, because we ultimately know where everything's.
right.
By now, if you haven't been paying attention, you know where the hot button issues are.
And I think Mike makes a good point that maybe a lot of people in town don't know or don't fully appreciate how much is actually fixed that we can't mess with. And it would be nice probably, and it really illuminating for department heads to make clear when they're giving the presentation at the beginning, like this 80% is a fixed cost that cannot be budged. So we're going to move it aside. So what we could actually, this is what is at issue.
It opens
what
the
I would
forum.
say.
I think
So
that's-
I think
that's
that's like, I think that would be the most helpful information for the public. I think it's the way we package it. It's not the amount, it's not the quantity, it's the quality, and saying like, guys, here's what we could actually do. It's not helpful to say like, we need to cut $6 million. We don't have $6 million to cut because 90% of this is fixed.
Yeah.
So it's not a helpful, so to have that as like a guardrail, or say to the department heads, here's how we sort of would like it to be framed, of like, here's what we have to work with if we were to do anything, if we were to mess with anything. I think that would be helpful to the public, because when I tell people, when people that I know have looked at the budget and said, oh my God, this is huge, we've got to do something about this. And I say, well, 82% of this is fixed with teacher salaries. So then what do you do? What are you going to mess with? And I think that changes their perspective a lot. So I agree with you, Mike. I think that's a really key point to get across.
Tiger, is somebody who gets his budget done in record time with a ton of information. Do you have any thoughts on this? I know you and I have talked about it. Tiger was also a proponent of the idea of bringing departments throughout the year, but any thoughts?
Well, thank you. Well, yeah, I had that thought, we had that thought together about having, spreading it out across the time. Yeah, but I do agree with some of the comments across the board whereby the public, if they're not watching the Board of Selectmen or the Board of Finance, they're gonna pick it up at some point in time. And I personally, would I give 5 or 6, similar to Dr. Lutzy, right? So you got the first with the selectmen, then the Board of Selectmen, then the liaison, then the Board of Finance, and the town council. You get at least 5, and then subsequent slices at the apple. But I think it's almost a disservice. I would rather do my full presentation, and so that everyone can see it, so that if a resident was watching, they would understand it. Like, I got comments today from people that watched my Board of Finance presentation last night. Right, so it was the first time they had seen it, first time they had recognized it, and liked the depth of detail that the Board of Finance went into, and that what we were discussing in the budget level. So that's a difficult situation, right? I don't mind giving it multiple times, because I think it's important, to be perfectly honest with you. And if you try to slice it up and just go to the meat of it, some things are going to get lost, and you're not going to discuss certain items unless they're actually brought before you. So
There you have it.
Wow.
Sorry.
Thank you, Tiger.
Want to know how many lawnmowers do we actually have?
Well,
Seriously.
Tiger's one of the people we always feel bad for, but that was really refreshing. Tiger.
Well, it's
Thank
different
you.
now that it's so much easier for him to be able to not have to travel.
Well, it also, when you're presenting, you have your presentation in a PowerPoint, and it's all done, and it's all buttoned up because you've done it. And we've watched Tiger do it pretty effectively over the years. And I understand, like, how do you rejigger a great presentation like this? And how do you do it?
Also,
it's almost more
the
work.
dialogue between Tiger and the Board of Finance was a symphony. I mean, it was masterful, and you could tell this guy was like really excited about every minute of it, because he was connecting.
Right.
And people were understanding and following in a way that you couldn't do if you
Tiger,
just.
you have to run a class on teaching everyone how to.
Tiger,
present.
don't you think that started in your liaison meeting?
Yeah, right.
Absolutely, Mark.
I mean, that
Started
was,
there.
I mean, everyone knew what was coming,
That's
right?
right.
If the word inflation hadn't been said 1,000 times.
All right, so to end this
I have one-
discussion.
Can I? I'm
Go
so
ahead,
sorry,
Peter. Go
and I
ahead.
might be being really naive. So forgive me if this grenade that I'm about to drop is.
You're new.
is
You're new. You get away with
upsetting.
this stuff for a year.
Please, yeah, give me some grace.
1 year.
So, Hillary, I agree. I've talked to folks where I've said, 80% of the budget is, it's fixed because it's people, and sometimes the comment is, well, do we need all those people?
That's right.
What's the contract about? Why is it that amount? So while I agree, like there may be very little we can do, I don't know if people really truly understand that or agree with that. So I think that is something
Right.
that we.
Well, there's a-
probably
But that's
need to
during the
address.
contract discussion, which has already been.
Well,
discussed.
No, it's
But they
you can reduce
understand
headcount
can
with any
reduce headcount.
contract.
Sure.
So there's a minority, I hope it's a small minority, but
Yeah.
there's definitely a vocal minority in town that would say, let's talk about headcount.
Or maybe even just more about visibility, understanding it, not necessarily just when someone's questioning, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to disagree. It just might mean they want to understand it. So I think that has to be considered.
I would like to add that the public has an opportunity to speak about a subject of the budget during our meetings and not during the Board of Finance or the Board of Selectmen meetings. And I think it's important to go through the budget process, as lengthy as it can be at times, only because that's the final version. All the other meetings is when you're just cooking the budget and putting in and taking out, and nothing's definite. It's only definite when it comes to town council. But that is what is being considered. And I think to skip that step would be a huge mistake, because we would not be doing right by the citizens of the town. We vote on line items. And how can we vote if we really don't understand, or the public doesn't understand what's in it? I agree wholeheartedly with what Tiger said.
Thanks, Christina.
The only problem with that is the public is thinking that we can add something back in that the other bodies have cut out.
Well, if
The most important thing is that we get to vote on it, whether it's at that level or to reduce it. and we are justified to do either. That's the most important role we play.
But I do think there are some departments that present that probably could, Bethany's a
Trim it up.
great example. She loves to tell you about all the different agencies she works with throughout the year. It relates to her budget, but she could do that at another time and really just present her overall budget. Jen this year, did a great job telling us all the number of vaccines she's given and the tests and all that. So that was good information, but I think we could whittle some of them down a bit and have them come out throughout the year. Anyway.
It
All right,
sounds
so-
like to me that we haven't changed.
No, we have this conversation once a year. We end up at the same spot. So the idea will be, I guess it'll be up to us to move the meeting along as quickly as possible, but not skip steps. I mean, that's,
But then that
But I
means
do
us
think
having
there's some good
questions.
suggestions. I don't think we threw away the whole thing. I mean, I think
No,
it's like,
no.
we're pointing out issues that have been brought up all along the way, instead of, we're not starting from scratch once it gets here. So I do think there's a way to streamline it somewhat. And so you're not skipping the opportunity for the public to have the visibility, but maybe you're just, summarizing specific points that have come up along the way that have been questions that we can answer, or we could question.
All right, thank you. And I agree with Christina about the public weighing in, because they really do come out for our budget meetings. And every year we have several people that sign up and speak, no matter what. I mean, every year we have it. So
I just don't think we're not hiding anything from the public. This is what I'm saying.
no.
And it's not skipping. It's just saying, like I said,
shortening.
these presentations have been giving. They come in, they can give their top line summary.
Yeah.
We have questions, and I think we all should be studied up and ask the particular questions. We could vet those out. If the public is raising particular issues, we can flesh those out further in our discussions and just kind of like move that along rather than, let's get an hour and a half presentation.
Exactly.
And then start up our questions, and then it's 10:30 at night, and, you take one day off and come back for the next, 3.5 hour session.
Yeah,
for
so
3 weeks straight.
so let's give the liaisons on the council the ability to communicate with the presenters and the department heads that you are responsible for, and relay the information. So that's where we'll leave it tonight, and hopefully we'll shorten them up a little bit. All right, moving on. Tiger, number 11, Aquarian project reimbursement, approval of a request from the Department of Public Works to deposit $167,923.59 from Aquarian as reimbursement in lieu of paving road opening permit fee for each trench project, and as part of the partnership with the town of infrastructure improvements. The monies will be deposited into 4 DPW accounts to cover the expenses incurred for repaving of roads and reinstallation of sidewalks. Tiger.
Well, thank you. So this proposal, this is something we've been doing for a long time with Aquarian, probably 20 years. We've been partnering with Aquarian. Whenever they come in to do a water main project, we try to coordinate our schedules so that they come in before we pave, and then they pay 50% of the mill and pave costs. So whatever the bid price was for the milling and whatever the bid price was for the paving itself, they pay 50% of that, which is actually a benefit for both of us, right? It actually works out almost equally if we were going to do it on a road opening permit basis. But in this case, they contribute straight to the paving. We contract with the paver. So we contract with the paving company. It's our contract. They're working for us, and Aquarian is reimbursing us for the costs. So these 4 checks that we received were for projects that they had done, water main installations that they had done last year and this year. So we had the stretch of water main on Main Street from Farm Road to Lakeview Avenue. They went to Oak Street last year and then went to Lakeview this year. They did a stretch of water main on Church Street. They did other stretches of water main, but those were state roads. So you got Cherry Street and Main Street are state roads. Those will be paved under a separate program with the state next year. And then they did a water main installation on Upper Elm Street, and then a portion of Park Street. So they needed to tie in that work. And then late in the game, they came into Mortimer and Lockwood when we were just finishing up the sidewalk project, ready to pave. They asked us to allow them to come in and do two water mains there, and we postpone the paving for them till next year. So all told, we calculated out exactly how much the quantities would be. Some of them were actually in place quantities, Main Street, and others are going to be paved, Elm Street, Mortimer, and Lockwood. And then they're utilizing the bid prices that we have that we'll be using going forward, paying 50% of that. So all in, it was $167,000, $167,923.59. I should mention that on the Main Street project, Upper Main Street, that they just did, they had some sidewalk damage where they had to do all the tie-ins to all the sidewalks. They asked us to hire our contractor to come in and repair all the brick sidewalks. Our contractor gave us a price of $14,300, and Aquarian reimbursed us completely for all that work. They've been an excellent partner, and we just want to be able to accept the monies and then use it to offset the monies that we've already paid out.
Thank you.
Right.
You're welcome.
Questions? That's pretty straightforward.
I'll move it.
All right, Penny makes the motion, second.
Second.
I saw Maria first. Penny, then Maria. All in favor? That's aye. Christina?
Yes.
Thank you. That's
Thank
unanimous.
you very much.
Thanks, Tiger. All right, committee reports, updates from committees, bylaws and ordinances, Tom and Hillary.
Nothing for me tonight.
All right. You're up next. Education, Tom and Rita. Anything?
Rita?
I think you've done such a great job.
You know, yeah, we talked a lot about education already, so.
Okay, very good. Keep it short. All right, finance and government, Mark and Maria.
I would just say that we had our general government presentation to the committee. And I listened in on it, and it's now with the Board of Finance. And as you would expect, that was pretty much a budget that was more or less down the middle. Whereas I think you'll probably hear more of inflation hitting other parts of the budget. So.
Can I just add something? I have a question about the 8-30G development, and I was wondering if the town council, if this is some kind of committee where we can convey our thoughts to Hartford, and would that fall under our committee to sort of pull together some ideas? Because, you know, with these big developments, what I'm wondering is, as you're growing your base of housing, like, are you staying flat at meeting the required 10%?
It grows.
Are we growing? Like, I think it would be good to understand that
Yeah,
townwide.
if you bring 100 units in, 30% are affordable.
Mhm.
That means 70 are not. Then that increases our base by 70.
So
You
as,
can never get ahead.
But that's what I'm saying. So I'm wondering, do we need a committee sort of to study and advocate, you know, for what's best for our.
Well, our reps are very proactive right now about
No.
advocating. Well, the Republicans.
he did, yeah. So Kevin announced there's a press conference tomorrow regarding this.
But it's only,
But-
it's only Ryan and Tom. It's only the Republicans.
Right. So I am all for, Maria, if there's anything that council can do. Obviously right now we're facing some of the newer issues in town. So, and obviously we've had a lot of correspondence from concerned citizens. So from the standpoint of who on the council, which committee would handle that, I would think finance and government would be the right choice. So
I don't know.
I would like to add, maybe it should be infrastructure, and we can have a joint meeting with finance if you'd like, because it's more to do with the architectural requirements than anything else. And Penny, just to correct, when you build 100 units and 30 are allocated for affordable housing, then that space becomes neutral. It's the rest of the town that has to catch up. But when the Marriott apartments were built, or the View as it is now, there were no affordable apartments, to my knowledge. It's 100+ units that are just full price. So that adds to the town's burden without any levy.
Okay, so what I'm hearing, Maria, you and Christina, you want to try to get together and see what you can.
Sure.
I mean, we're happy, you've got the support of the council, so, whatever you
Just to-
decide to,
Yeah, to balance out the impact to the town and make sure.
even if it's as much as a presentation that a quick PowerPoint to just bring the public up to speed and bring us up to speed as far as what we can and can't do. I mean, I think that's important because a lot of people right now are asking, well, why don't our town leaders do something about this? Well, it's really coming down from the state, and there's only so much you can do locally. So
If we could pass a bylaw or ordinance right now, I'm sure.
yeah.
Well, no,
Honestly.
Yeah.
we can impact what, our reps bring to the state. Maybe there's some kind of, maybe I'm sure the statute itself needs to be modified somehow, but how? Like, how do you do that in a way?
I'd start by asking Ryan and Tom how they think the statute ought to be amended. They may have some analysis that would be useful to us.
I mean, they are our direct voices in Hartford. I mean,
Right.
those two, they're up there fighting the fight. So they're the ones that are going to be the.
Christina will meet with them.
Well, I'd also think we should ask why our moratorium lapsed and the paperwork wasn't filed. I mean, I think
I think the paperwork was filed, but it got held up in Hartford because.
no, it
of
hasn't
COVID.
been, no, it hasn't. Lynn, it was not filed. No, Lynn we're still working on it now. It's my understanding for the moratorium. No.
The town the state offices weren't open to process it because of COVID.
At the last Board of Selectmen meeting that I went to, there was a discussion where she asked the Board of Selectmen to approve someone to be hired. That was this fall to help her with the application because the moratorium lapsed in June. And so I think that question needs to be answered. Why did the moratorium lapse when everybody knew that Canaan Parish was falling behind schedule? That's another question too. I'm not disagreeing that 830G has some issues and might need to be amended. That's a perfectly legitimate question for our legislators. Absolutely. However, there needs to be a question about why the moratorium lapsed and why there's a delay and why it wasn't done on time when Canaan Parish, it was clear that there was a delay that would have met our minimum requirements. But when we knew there was a delay, that paperwork should have been filed. So it's not entirely a Hartford problem is my understanding. So that question needs to be answered as well. So if you're forming a committee, I would like someone to
Ask
look at that side of it as well.
Tucker, do you have the answer to that question?
I don't, but I have a partial answer to another. You're talking about this committee. You should know that at the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday, Lynn is presenting a request of approval to appoint a committee from town that is going to work as part of WestCog, which is the Western Council of Governments, to look at the whole 830 J and G. So both are up for grabs, but Scott Hobbs, John Goodwin, Krista Nielsen, Peggy Daneman, Kevin will sit on it, and Lynn. So that's another group that's going to be working on both of these at the same time.
That's great.
That's great.
But I'm going to find out about that.
Yeah, I
because
think-
Scott Hobbs told me something.
Yeah, I think that there's a question about that because it's my understanding that it lapsed in June and then in August or September. I can't remember when that was asked for. And then it's 90 days because Nick Williams asked a very specific question to Lynn. I remember at that meeting, from the time that the application for the moratorium is filed, how long does that process take for it to become effective? And the answer was 90 days. So there's a 90-day lag between the filing and when it is effective too. So there's that window. And I distinctly remember that from the fall. So that question I think should also be answered.
And the public hearing too, right? Wasn't that also?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there's the sewer capacity issue.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another issue, but that's.
Oh, it's a mess.
Board of Finance. All right, Health and Human Services, Kim Penny.
If you want to make this quick, I think I could just say that the departments, because it has various sections, be it the health section, the adult services, the family services, the youth services, they all are very actively involved. And it's not just with COVID related issues, but they're normal issues that they deal with, substance abuse, mental health. There's outreach to a great number of the shut-ins in town to make sure that they get vaccinated. They're doing nice touches of recycling, so to speak, floral arrangements. People bring their floral arrangements, they get rearranged and distributed to people who are shut-ins. So there's constant outreach, no matter what the age group is in town.
That's great.
They do such great work over there. They really do. I hope our community is grateful for all the work that they do.
All right, infrastructure and utilities, Christina and Penny again.
Go ahead, Penny.
Go ahead, Christina.
I don't have any updates.
No, I think we had our, budget review, and it was really very thorough, and we love Tiger's PowerPoints.
And as far as utilities go, it's hearing that we've got movement on some of these cell towers is great news.
That's great news.
Yeah. All right, land use and rec, Robin and Luke.
So we had our meeting on the 2nd, our committee meeting with the Board of Finance, and pretty much everything was fine with the budget. The only thing is they were requesting more money because of programs, and clinics have just gone crazy. And so they asked for additional monies. So the next fiscal year, they can add more, because John House said so many people were on the waiting list. And then the only thing that was brought up was that there was no, in the budget, what was missing? It was Kiwanis, the rental fee from the Y. So I don't know if that's been put in by the Board of Finance. And then otherwise, Conservation Commission didn't have a meeting in January. They didn't have the regular meeting in February, but they'll have one tomorrow at 6:30. And then do you want a quick rundown of Parks and Rec? Sure. Okay. The Greenwich, Tucker, I don't know if you know about this, but the Greenwich Wine and Food Festival organizers weren't at the meeting, the Parks and Rec meeting. Yeah. So
the date was, there was no date.
okay, so that's why. All right, so they were going to come back in February, but then they weren't at the meeting, so I just assumed it was over.
Just because they couldn't find the 3 consecutive
Days. Okay. Captain and Carburetors will be held on October 23rd at Waveney Park. It was approved by Parks and Rec and the Special Events Committee. The New Canaan Athletic Foundation presented. They've been doing really well. To get a picture of their spring usage fees, they collected just over 54,000. Their fall usage fees, they collected over 39,000. Their enterprise zone, which is June 15th through August 15th, they collected 81,000, just over 81,000 this year. So in 2019, it was 30,000. So they're doing really well. And some of their capital improvements they're looking to do are the press box at Dunning Stadium, the outside of Dunning Stadium, and the varsity baseball field. Field Fest is supposedly happening this year after twice. So September 10th, the motion was made unless there's a wedding on that date. I don't know if you would, yeah. New Canaan Garden Club presented about Irwin Park. They're looking to put in a 900-foot boardwalk in the wested wood edge of the wood. The cost ballpark was about 350,000. I think that changed though in the book when they presented to Board of Finance. I think it was lower. It was like 250, right? But they're asking the town to pay for that.
They have money.
Just reporting.
They got a grant. They managed $400,000 grant.
All right.
So they're
Come on.
they're also looking to put in a hillside terrace next to the Gorge Pavilion. Nature Center is doing well. PPO, they lost some money during COVID with the preschool and some other things, but the PPP loan forgiveness helped them out. Rec department, as I said, tennis is up 140%, soccer up 50%, swim lessons up 50%. And then the last thing is they talked about the oil spill of Bristow, and they have found the source on Douglas. And the question now is who pays for the cleanup. Right now, Tiger said that the town is bearing the cost, but Connecticut Deep is going to determine who does that. And that's it.
Great, thanks, Robin. Thank you very much. All right, Luke, anything? Good. All right. It's hard to follow that act. I mean, she's Really good. All right, public safety.
The best one. I'll just give the report. We held our committee meeting for the budgets there. I mean, I think they're pretty tight. So we vetted that out. The police department building, as we all saw, the police commission has expressed their desire that we get moving on the rebuilding in the current location, not any other location. We were supposed to have a police building committee meeting, but last week that got adjourned until March. The other issue tonight, the police commission meeting, the chief presented his proposal for the security cameras at Waveney, Irwin, and in town. The project itself, spearheaded by one Miss Hillary Orman, right?
With your
It's
help.
kind of been moving along, but maybe not at the best pace it needs to be. The chief really needs that infrastructure up and running quite quickly, and he's going to sort of act as a project manager as he's positioning what he envisions how this project should move forward quickly. Part of what he needs is a $200,000 allotment of funds to move forward with the cameras, the installation, and essentially, hooking it all into a location for it to be, accessible, which would be, used for his law enforcement purposes. As we know, we have some increase in some crime in town to some degree. And it's an invaluable tool in this day and age for modern law enforcement that he have it. So the project it needs to move forward and at a much quicker pace. So the chief wants to take the bull by the horns and move it along. He'd like 25,000 for Waveney, 75,000 for Irwin, and the balance essentially to be used for in town. So he feels it's the right setup. He'll work with Tiger on installation. He'll work with Chris Kaiser, our IT person. Obviously, he needs to work with Kevin. But the bulk of the issue here is to essentially have a project manager coordinate and get this thing moving. The chief will be presenting tomorrow night at the Board of Finance his same proposal that he brought forth to the commission. The commission approved him to go make the proposal tomorrow. It can be done as he did tonight in the public session. He's not revealing anything that's secure that would compromise any law enforcement function or any security matters. So I think that we should, in my opinion, encourage the Board of Finance to approve that $200K, which is not any additional funding. It's just transferring it from the extra duty fund, which I think has about $1 million sitting in it. So the money's there. The chief is designating himself to, I shouldn't say it like that. He's proposing that he just kind of be the, de facto project manager to work with Kevin and work with the selectmen and all the stakeholders to move that project forward very quickly. He needs it. I think that he wants to avoid a perception in town that, there's things that are the tools available that we're not maximizing. So I think it's really important we support this project and get this thing moving and be forward and get it done. That's it.
Right.
Thank you. Paraphrase that really well. Just in terms of on the budget side, as a member of the public, just sitting in that budget meeting, listening to the Office of Emergency Management and the fire department and the police department, I was just struck by a couple of things that I think if I were a public person, I'd want to understand it better. There's just a lot of investment around communication and around PPE and things, PPE that has to be replaced, say, every 5 years. And so I was struck by how much money needs to be invested. It wasn't a question of, should we, but it was just understanding that why we're spending what we're spending. And so I thought it was just really interesting to just understand that a little bit better. There's a trailer that needs to be replaced because it's falling apart. There's a Motorola contract, and there's communications that have to be separate from the normal communications when you're talking about emergency management. So it was just, I think it would be interesting for the public to understand that. The one opportunity I did see, and I don't know how big this would be, but they use this Everbridge mass notification system to send out notifications. it's separate from what the school uses to send out their notifications. And so I asked the question, like, would there be any cost savings to, to consider maybe streamlining that and maybe putting that together? And he was like, yeah, probably that would be something they could look into. So again, it might be a small budget item, my little contribution, but it's just something to think about in terms of maybe streamlining some of the costs. But more, I was struck with even the capital costs that we're going to be facing in the out years to replace some of this equipment that we have to purchase. So that was my observation.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
I just want to go on the record and saying regarding the police station, we all sat through that presentation about the costs. They're going up. We might as well throw those numbers out the door.
Wow.
Every month we wait, the costs are going up. And I plead with the powers that be to get this moving along as fast as possible. Because I have a feeling we're going to be sitting in a presentation hearing about costs, and we're going to be splitting hairs over numbers that, had we done this 6 months ago, would have been a lot cheaper.
Agree.
I know they're moving it as quickly as they can. And we've asked, and I know time is of the essence. Obviously, rates are going up, and I've heard from a number of the committee members that they want to see it moving along, and we're doing as much as we can to put the pressure on. So
It's not only rates, it's everything across the board.
Everything.
The cost of capital today is not going to be the cost of capital tomorrow. And then just inflation as well as, everything else, the cost of raw materials has skyrocketed.
Yep.
And it's come down slight, but like you're talking a 40% increase from like 18 to 24 months ago.
yeah.
I think that's going to be very important, that we're going to have to communicate well to the community that we've held these budgets flat for 3 years. And there's just really not a whole lot left in the budgets to cut. And we are now, subject to what's going on in the greater world that we have no control over.
And to quote someone, if we keep cutting the bone.
There's nothing there to cut.
And just to finish up on Mike's point, obviously tomorrow night Board of Finance meeting, it probably would be wise if, I plan to be there or watch. So, those of you who are available, please attend or watch. And if you can't attend or watch, catch it online. So it's going to be an important meeting. All right. Public safety, followed by New Canaan Library project and the legacy building update. Mark, got any new information? I'll follow you up.
Well, as you know, Steve and I sit through the building committee meetings, and one topic that is going to come up is around the preservation of the building and the costs that are going to be incurred as it relates to that building. As you know, they're mandated to preserve it, and currently have plans, hired an architect, and of course there are going to be costs. And they're obviously, based on the MOU, they're not allowed to use money given to them by the town for that building. So they're just going to have to be a broader discussion among this council around where that money is going to come from.
Yeah, and as far as the project itself goes, it's the new library is running on time, on schedule. As Mark mentioned, we meet every Monday morning with Turner Construction, the architects, members of the library board, 2 members of the Board of Finance are on the call. Mark and I are on the call. And, we get into the nitty gritty about what's going on in the building, and it's really interesting. And you've seen some of the stuff coming out of the ground, and pretty soon you're going to start seeing steel. So it's really, really exciting. And they're doing a great job in terms of, you watch what they do during these meetings, and it's a very well run. Turner Construction has really impressed me with their ability to drill down into the budget. They're showing you the pluses and the minuses, where they're ahead, where they're behind, and it's really, really, really well done. Very confident sitting in those meetings. So hopefully they'll keep up the on time, on budget work that they're doing. And as Mark said, the legacy building is a separate project from what we're undertaking, and that's going to be a discussion that we'll have to have to keep this project moving along at the pace that it's moving. Obviously, there's timelines that have to be met. And you can imagine if you're running a construction site, as you face moving the 1913 building, we're going to have to be prepared, have a foundation and everything in place. And this goes all the way back to the planning of getting this all done. So that's why right now the time and the clock is ticking, and we're going to have to deal with it. So that's where they are.
Has P and Z approved what was proposed yet? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I just can't, so that was approved, the
It's
plan
all
that
done.
was
It's-
presented.
it's all
to
done.
move the legacy building to that back.
Yes. Yeah. And
Correct. Sorry, Penny, you're right.
it's really a matter of how, the town obviously has said that they'll support the project because we were the ones that told them
Mhm.
to move it. So we just have to figure out where the money's coming from. We've had the ARPA money. We earmarked $1 million of the ARPA money for that project. Whether that's still where we want to take that $1 million from is going to be up to the Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen to get it to us. But they may want to do a special appropriation or have it come from a different place. But it's something that we're going to need to move on fairly quickly. So we need to have that discussion now rather than have it as a surprise down the road. So that's why we're bringing it up.
I have a separate question
Sure.
about their costs. There was an announcement recently about the project, I believe in conjunction with Grace Foundation, about the researching of all products and processes that may have engaged slave labor.
Yes.
What is that going to do to your costs? Because there'll have to be some products that are going to have to be changed or materials changed.
So they're starting to address that. And when we hear the next, it'll probably roll out over the next few meetings, but there really isn't anticipated when you come to a materials choice, they're really making a choice based on tracing it back as far as they can. So the idea is that they're not going to be over budget on items just because of that choice to be involved with Grace. And I believe, from what I understand, there is grants that are available that Grace has looked at, that if there is a difference that they would cover as well. So we shouldn't see an impact on that as far as the town side.
I was just wondering whether or not there was a companion relationship with the Grace Foundation to be covering those differences should they occur.
It's a good question. We'll bring that back to the building committee. All right. Anything else? Just a final comment to finish up the pool. Thank you again for hearing the pool dedication tonight. And I'll leave you with a couple thoughts. We'll probably be forming an ad hoc committee to get into signage, a little fundraising, and obviously the town-wide dedication in June. And one of the things I shared with a couple of you, I actually visited Steve the day before he passed and was able to thank him from the town and the town of New Canaan for all the things that he's done. And, I had my hand on him and I said, Steve, we can't thank you enough. And got a little squeeze and I told him that we were considering the pool and he actually knew what we were doing before he left us. So I'm very proud that we were able to get this done in a timely manner. And I want to thank you all for voting tonight. And I want to thank New Canaan as well.
Wonderful.
Okay.
We also at town hall, we all, a week ago Monday, in this room, everybody came through and we did a little video for him. We set up a Zoom and he started, stopped it, and we sent it off that day to Sue, and she said she showed it to him that night, and she said he was all smiles. So
good.
That's so nice.
God bless him.
Nice touch.
Yeah.
All right. With that, it's 9:45. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
So could you tell